You're listening to Well, I Laughed, Part 1 of Rumor Has It, Duel Interests.
I've decided some people need more social anxiety.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I teach high school.
Yeah. Some people just say crazy shit.
Also, apologies if my voice sounds weird. I realized when I walked into your house and said hello, it was the first word I'd said out loud all day today.
That explains. I was worried that you were sick.
No.
Okay.
I was also too a little bit because technically the first word I said out loud was in my car when I did like the boop, like, hey Siri, text Maia on my way. And I heard my voice come out like real soft. And like I did just go to the gym and it's a little cold out. So like I think, my lungs are still like warming back up and stuff. But we're doing a very rare Saturday recording because I'm still on break. And that means I woke up this morning and like had a little coffee and like lunch and I went to the gym and I just haven't seen anyone all day today. It's been really nice. I love the holidays. I love my friends and I love my family. Really nice to have a little bit of alone time. So I'm great. No, I'm doing a wonderful time. I just think my voice is going to be warming up a little bit here.
That's
like an
fine.
Old vaudeville opera star. So how's your day been?
I checked our P.O. box.
Mm-hmm.
We got a Christmas card from one of our patrons. It's very sweet. I'll show you after the episode. They like sent us their Christmas card and then also wrote like a little note to go along with it. And it was just like, sorry if it's weird that I'm sending you my Christmas card, but now that I'm
not. Put it on a list.
Now that I'm 30, I just figured I should do more things. And then in like parentheses or something, it was like, as long as it's not illegal or something like that. I was like,
listen, we're not the kind of people to talk to about that kind of stuff.
I was like, I don't know. I'm having a good time.
That's so cute. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
You got me a cute little Christmas gift. It's a tiny baby Stanley cup. Thank you. I'm saying it's not Stanley Copper. Stanley cup, and it's precious and adorable, and it holds just a small amount of liquid.
Yeah, like probably about
small.
2 ounces.
Yeah, roughly give or take some.
So if you want
2 ounces,
yeah,
it's almost like it'd be best just to drink it in one gulp.
It's like microdosing hydration.
Whatever you're putting in here. Yeah. I'm sure I'll be able to find out some ways to use it. Boy, my voice really is still warming up because that's a low note I'm normally very easily able to hit. No, I promise I'm not sick. Like, feel totally great. I just legitimately haven't spoken a word today.
When your vocal cords aren't warmed up, you should be able to hit lower notes easier.
Really?
Because they like.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. I just work
it
here
immediately. So obviously, last time we recorded was pre-holidays.
Oh my God.
So we have a lot of stories. I want to save / gatekeep most of them for Patreon. But there is one story. There's just like the whole episode will just be holiday stories if I really get into it. There is one story though that I am excited to tell you about.
Okay.
So Maia and Casey spent New Year's Eve here in the city with some of her friends, and that was wonderful. Meanwhile, I ascended to the mountains with several of your favorite people from the Well, I Laughed universe.
Yes.
So there's me, my brother, and sister-in-law, so that's 3. Jacob and Lydia gets us to 5. Jacob's brother and his, I think technically the term right now is still just long-term girlfriend, but Jacob's brother and the brother's long-term girlfriend, so that gets us up to 7. Mm-hmm. And then Tyler and one of Tyler's friends, and then our friend Danny Sophie, not Sophie, Lee's Sophie, Danny Sophie. So there was 10 of us up in the Grand Lake area for New Year's Eve this year. We rented this really cool cabin, and we were really, really excited. And the morning of the 31st, heading up, Lydia asks me, hey, do you think it's weird that I haven't heard any of the check-in information from the host yet?
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, maybe a little. I'm not too worried about it though. Just shoot off a message. So she does. We drive up when we go tubing, I think in the town of Fraser, where, it's just big giant sledding. It's a lot of fun. Also, the first time you go down, you go so fast and it makes the sound of like a jet engine.
Yes, it's so loud.
Yes, and your whole body clenches up because it knows how fast it's going and it can hear a really loud sound.
It's freaky the first time that you do it,
And you just got to keep in mind that you've seen no one wipe out on the hill and children are going down literally head first.
Yes.
Right, exactly. But I am ready to do much like I call it the Texas tumble that I took down on the border a couple years ago. Where just tuck it in,
tuck and roll.
Triple axle lux, like I'm just ready to hit this hard ice and break every bone in my body. But it's a great time and nothing's happening. we finish up. It's like 2:30. We still haven't really heard anything. Check-in's at 3, but we're hungry. So we go to lunch to this little bar. I don't usually give shout outs, but Mavericks in Granby. It was absolutely fantastic.
Nice.
And Lydia starts to call some of these people now, like some of the contact information.
Yeah.
She finds the contact information of a property manager, calls the property manager. Property manager's name is Pearl. Pearl, no longer the property manager, was the property manager. But Pearl, who's like in her 70s, is like, I live 2 miles away. I'm going to drive over, investigate for you, Lydia. Drives
What a
over,
queen.
investigates, calls Lydia back. Okay, great news, terrible news. Great news, people are there. Terrible news, house is under construction actively right now. And then they get a hold of a second person who like is the property owner, and she goes, I sold that property. Like, I don't own that property anymore. Like, I know what you're talking about, but I sold that property. I don't have it anymore.
Why was it still listed then,
Right,
babe?
because the new owner never took it down. And so we had booked a Verbo, and we're like, how are we the first ones to discover this?
Yeah.
And so we call Verbo and we're like, we're stranded. And they're like, that sucks. Here's a credit. You can't use it at Airbnb and you have to find your own accommodation. Click. That's it. That's all. They're like, here's an extra $1,000. Let us know if
I
you
would
survive
sue.
the night. Right. So we're furious. And so we like call back. We're trying to find a couple places. But here's the fun thing about Verbo. Verbo won't let you book day of. And it's New Year's Eve. And so we can't book a New Year's Eve cabin on Verbo. And so we call back. We thank God get a different person who like really, really works through with us. Like gives us this like huge credit to like find somewhere to stay that night, is giving us like a huge credit for the next night too, like full reimbursement. At one point I did coach Lydia to say, we are the victims of fraud from your company. You have defrauded us and we've invested thousands of dollars to get here. And we're stranded and it's New Year's Eve and it's now 6 p.m.
Yeah, so take that information how
and
you will.
run with it how you want. So they just get us like a bunch of suite rooms.
Good.
I don't mean like SWEET, I mean SUITE, like suites.
Yeah.
At a local Holiday Inn Express. And we go have New Year's Eve at the Holiday Inn Express in Fraser, Colorado. Now,
I mean, fair enough.
I'll say two other things. First, Mavericks was absolutely the right place to get stranded because what started out as fried pickles at 3 p.m. became, whoa, do you know they have a fish tank back here at 4:30 p.m.? They're because it was a restaurant and bar, so the bar area had like 4 arcade games.
Oh, that's cool.
And like a broken like big buck hunter and like a giant tank for 2 fish and like wood burning stoves in 2 different corners.
cute.
And we were on the phone with Verbo for so long that they just let us take over a table and then we're playing like golf, like the card game, and like we're ordering
love
drinks.
that.
We stay so long on this random, I don't know, what day of the week was New Year's Eve? Tuesday? On this random Tuesday, we've managed to stay in time for Tuesday night trivia, where all of the locals literally know each other.
That's so wholesome.
Oh, I know. And so
Cute.
so now we have a sheet of paper and Lydia's filing up details for like what reimbursement's going to look like for all these Holiday Inn Express rooms. And suddenly we're halfway through trivia and we're called the Stranded Strangers. But like, actually they weren't doing teen names because they know everybody. And so it's just Larry and like Sue and like Gwen. And the first 3 questions, you just shout out the answer. And first one to say it correctly got a free shot, right? And then after that, there is a 10-question trivia game. We're feeling pretty good about it all, right? Halfway, once you're done with all 10 questions, there's a 7-minute smoke break. And that's how they announce it. They go, all right, finish up those answers. When we're back from our 7-minute smoke break, we will reveal the answers. And
love
so,
that.
love this place so much. They're going through. We only get 7 out of the 10 correct. And so we're like, oh, that's tough. And then they're announcing, all right, in second place, we have Gwen over here with 5 correct. And then we have Todd over here, the final winner of 2024 with 6 correct. And we go, I'm sorry. We got 7 right, which is amateur numbers in Denver. Like, don't even like sneak out before the final question.
Truly.
Like, ashamed of yourself.
We also found out that the trivia we go to is like notoriously difficult.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
we
remember
average
from
like
my
a
coworker.
90% correct weight at
I
that
know.
place. It has battle tested us.
And we are like in 6th, 7th place on a good day.
100%.
Yeah.
We'll threaten at the end, and then we lose it all in the Jeopardy round.
Yes,
But we're like, we have 7, and they're like, yes, eat that, Todd. You. They're the winners. Yeah. And it's a bar tab and it clears off our entire bar tab for the evening, basically. And so we all like fish cash out of our wallets and we're like, here, good townsfolk. Thank you for taking care of us. And then we hitch on away over to the Holiday Inn Express. And we're the right kind of group I think as a friend group. This is a much longer story than I thought. This is why I had to save everything else for after. But at the start, when I was like, I'm going to keep the rest for Patreon, you're like, what? And it's this, because I will just talk for an hour and a half.
I had no idea. I knew.
I'm fine. I'm a menace. Like it happened, and instead of like people being like that's bullshit and like that's so fucked up and like da da da, which like obviously it was when like the Verbo cabin doesn't exist.
Yes,
we're all like whipping out our phones. We're like, what's the budget? What are you guys thinking about?
Yeah.
Are we okay to drive all the way down to like Breck or Georgetown or like what's going on? Right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
everyone's there, whatnot, and they see leaders on the phone, and everyone's just kind of chill. Like no one loses any patience. No one yells at the wait staff or anything like that. We're trying to make sure
if
we're on our
anyone
way.
did, they would be out of the friend group.
But we stayed in that bar for legitimately like 5 hours.
That's so cute, though.
It was a great time.
that.
And then we went to the Holiday Inn Express. We'll wrap up the story here. And one of the big things about the cabin that we were really looking forward to was that it had a hot tub. We were all going to have like a big fun hot tub time. And as we check in on New Year's Eve, this guy's like, yeah, we don't normally get someone who books 6 suites to check in right away. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And we're pushing in like carts of like crock pots and like tortilla
Yeah, all
bag
of
chips.
the food that you guys were planning on cooking.
And we're like, yeah, I know. Sorry about that. And he goes, and this Lydia goes, so what time does the pool close? Because we want a hot tub. And he goes, pool closes at 10. And it's like 7:45, 8.
Okay.
Like, that's fine. Yeah. He goes, pool closes at 10. But it can stay open as long as you want, as long as you guys are good. And then gives us a saucy little wink. A happy New Year's to you, sir. And to all a good night. And it ends up being great because it's one of those pools where there's like the hot tub in the corner of the pool.
And then you can like cold plunge into like a pool,
And because there's 10 of us, like there was no way we were all going to be able to fit into
just don't act like Tyler's going to stay in a hot tub.
He didn't know for a really long time, him and his friend. His
friend.
You know, I don't know for like launching names yet. There's a dinner at that friend's place on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Okay,
I got invited. I need to tell him that I could come. I just saw the text and was like, Casey.
Ooh, that's all carpool together.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's 5 of us.
Sweet, awesome, sweet. Oh God, I'm doing dry January.
That sucks.
Yeah, it does. And that's it. I mean, obviously there's more stories about hot tubs and sweets and our machinations and all of that stuff. But I'll just tease it up for right now. And I'm going to talk about dry January next. But first, how are you?
The last time that we like really hung out before we went on break was the speech and debate tournament that I helped you judge.
So true. Oh my God, so
I know.
true. So heartwarming. So endearing.
Y'all, I'm the way I'm so invested in speech and debate right now. I don't know if Grant told you, he probably didn't, but I'm a level 2 accredited coach.
Well, it happened after our last recorded episode. That's so true. You're level 2 accredited. The kids love you. You're insightful and really good at it. You're also shocking no one who listens regularly, just as competitive as I am.
The way I screamed. Okay, Grant's team did really well overall.
Yeah, we did. We were the best.
They won. They won. The way Grant and like I had Grant on one side, Lydia on the other side, and we were like clutching each other when they were announcing
like American
final
Idol
winners.
Final top
and it
two.
was so funny because I noticed at some point Grant's like losing his mind because they announce they pull up all of the finalists for like a certain category, and then they announce the winners that way. And previous to this, all of the announcements have been like on social media or online or whatever. So we'd been able to like see it kind of privately. Or Grant had known privately what was going to happen, but he didn't know for the finals.
Right.
And I look over and he's like, I am not used to not knowing the results before going into the ceremony. I feel like I'm going to throw up.
Well, because usually in Denver, like I'm the one helping tabulate the results.
Yeah.
And so a huge part of my like calm persona in those clutch moments is that I know already.
Yeah.
Win, lose, draw, I already know. And I'm now here to like be supportive, you know,
of what the result is,
But so I knew how many finalists we had put into finals, but I didn't know where they were placing, and whether or not they finish first in finals or sixth, which is last in finals, determines how many points they score.
Yeah.
So as we're finding final round results, I am like in my head calculating like where we are against this other team. We won, hey.
It was just really funny to watch him. Like
you need to tell them, or I will tell them. You know what I'm talking about.
So
I love my friends so much.
To our listeners, I love you all so much. I don't know how to respond when people come up to me and are like, hey, I know everything about you. And I'm just like, fun.
Great.
Yeah, like I don't know what to tell. We got dinner with Maddie last night, Casey and I was like, I don't know if you've listened, like you probably haven't listened to this episode. I know you don't listen to the podcast that often. She was like, no, and I'm sorry. And I was like, no.
We can keep it that way.
Yeah, I was like, thank you. Like, if you're gonna listen to the story. Don't listen to the banter. You're ruining everything I have to tell you ever.
So true.
But anyway, so Grant's students know who I am. And there's a couple of them that I think have listened to the podcast.
Yes.
And so they also...
Literally one of them inspired the DB Cooper episode.
Yes, yeah.
Heard my podcast and was like, hey, here's a topic.
He was fun.
Yeah, he was
He also
fun.
told me to my face that he likes my stories better. So anyway.
Like these children wouldn't absolutely try to play us off against each other. It's like when Lee
they're
was
winning.
a guest on the podcast.
And they're winning. I don't know what you want from me.
United front. That's what I want. Very clearly stated.
No.
You need to get them to the part that's a little shameful.
I don't want to.
Okay, so I'll speed run it.
No. This is my story. This is my story. At some point, one of the girls is like coming up to Grant and is talking about like a crush she has on someone from like another competitor or someone from another
all
school
I
or
really
something.
want to talk about is like the logistics of their speeches and their debates. I'm like, I want to talk
These
about
two
like,
girls especially like lost their mind. They were like, we performed so well in that round because there was like a beautiful man there.
Right.
And they were like losing it. And so they're talking to Grant and Grant just goes, well, you know what I always say. If the grades don't touch, neither should you.
Right. I think in general you shouldn't touch, but especially if the grades don't touch.
And I said something like, oh yeah, I know a little thing about that. And and one of the girls turns to me and goes, what? And then Grant turns to me and goes, you don't need to say that. And I was like, yeah, so anyway, I dated a senior in high school.
No, you're like standing in the corner. It's a big group. The conversation's cooking because it's like all speech kids. And I think you kind of whisper it to a kid who is like now kind of distracted. And then I just hear you belt in the corner. All right, I'll admit it. I dated a senior when I was a freshman. And it dragged all 18 eyes to you. And I just looked at you and I remember mumbling under my breath, what? Like that was not at all what anyone was hinting at. What the fuck are you doing?
It had been a really long day.
Oh, it is. Oh, it absolutely is.
It had been a long day.
I bought a house in that gym, and it was 12 hours ago.
My lips are already loose when I am totally fine as a person. When I'm tired, like, girl, I will tell you my secrets.
Yeah. And the best part about the speech and debate kids is I like to think because of the activity, but it might be because of who their personalities are that draw them to the activity.
Yeah.
They're like actually very good conversationalists.
Oh, yeah.
They're still young people, so they can still absolutely be selfish. And it's like, you need to not crash out right now over that kind of stuff. And I think you saw me administer some of that famous Teresa Thomas tough love.
Oh, it was so funny.
To several of those children.
At least one of them.
Right. I was like, one of them was spiraling and I was like, yep, you got it confirmed for you. You got last. Everyone hated you. They laughed about it when they left the room. Did that happen? No, it didn't. Maybe we should just take a breath for a second.
At some
and
point,
calm
I
down.
watched Grant as he's like walking out after finals, like talk to this one student, and he's just like, I'm not going to entertain any of this conversation. So if you have anything positive to say, I'll talk to you about it. Otherwise, I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to act like you're not here. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
And they're obsessed with me. I mean, and you saw it. Like, we would enter the... granted, we also brought 60 children. But
they were always asking me where you were. And I was like, it wasn't my day to watch him. Like, I don't know what you want from me.
Have you seen Thomas? Where's Thomas? It's so sweet. But yeah, like, I would walk in and I would start talking to you. And then two kids would, like, join on either side of you. And then their friends would join. And by the time I was done with, like, our 20-second conversation, I'd look around in a full circle. It felt like every single scene from SpongeBob when, like, a mob forms. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's just an instantly perfect circle.
Yeah.
So that's why I mean. I'm so glad you came though. She's such a nerd. She is in, and she is
It's
now.
so fun. I'm trying to find
member,
this text that I sent you.
Associate coach to the program now, which is
Associate coach.
exciting.
Yeah. I want you to know I'll come. I'll help whenever.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Because I will absolutely be taking you up on that offer.
That's fine. Where is this text? That was Thursday. This was Friday. Oh, this is a text I sent. We had literally been in the gym that we were all set up in for like all of 10 minutes or something like that before Grant like walks out to go take care of something. And I'm sitting there. Lydia's also walked away. So it's like just me. And I'm just like on my computer, like looking at the like website that we're all using for judging or whatever. And I sent him, the children are panicking. JK. And then next text, but like one of them said they need to have their routine mental breakdown, and another one doesn't know how to log into the website.
They keep asking me where you are.
Yeah. And I also don't know how to log into the website. Luckily, one of your like old upperclassmen was like, come here, I'll help you. And I was like, thank you.
Well, and I've said this before, like, if you're a first year on the team, don't talk to me. Like, definitely be like, Mr. Mike, my round went super well. Like, da-da-da. Or like
let me celebrate.
I'm thinking about doing this new thing with blah-da-da-da. But if you just have like a general inquiry about something, go talk to a junior and senior. Like, you need to, 3 before me, hard rule for a lot of that stuff. So yeah, they just kind of like step in and run it. But they're a lot of fun.
They are a lot of fun.
They're a lot of fun. They bought a family size thing of lasagna at a local Target before we went to the tournament, and then warmed it up in the microwave at the hotel breakfast nook. And a front desk person who either was incredibly kind, incredibly trusting, or 2 minutes away from checking out.
Yeah.
One of those.
There's no way to know.
Last story about this trip, because I think we're sharing funny. We're on the border of too much, but we're right there. Last thing I'll say, I told my students, we get to the hotel, poor kids, at like 9:55.
Oh, yeah.
And like this day 2 coming up, and I'm like keenly aware that I'm going to be back in that high school gym in like 8.5 hours.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, lights out at 11. And so they go off and swim, and then a kid comes up to me and they goes, Mister, the front desk person said that the pool closes at 11, but like we can stay as long as we want. And it was like, cool, I have power of attorney over you.
Yeah.
It's lights out at 11.
It was funny because we noticed that we waited until like 11:10 or something like that. And like you saw one of them roaming the halls and you were like, it's lights out. And he was like, well, the front desk told us we can stay in the pool until whenever. And you were like, what?
And I'm such an intense person, but it's also so fun to remind them that I am also I'm a high school teacher. So that conversation with that child, he is dripping wet, wrapped in 2 towels. Like, but they said we could stay late as long as we want. And it was like, okay,
I don't know what to tell you.
Get in. I'll be there in like 2 minutes.
Go.
We have an actual really fun story planned for today. I
don't believe you.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I respect that. Especially after the last episode we did, was my Dr. Ruth episode.
Yeah.
I really do understand.
No, I literally don't trust you because you came in and were like, I cried, but it's like, it's all stuff going on in my life. Like, it's not like the story's pretty funny. And like 10 minutes later, we're like sobbing.
In my defense, like 10 days later after that episode, I just personally kind of crashed out for like 10 days, not 10 days, 10 hours. And then the next, could you imagine? And then the next day I was like, okay, we're ready to go again. Kind of had to touch some grass and cry alone a little bit, but I'm back.
You got to do that.
And so there was a moment where I was like, I think I'm just emotionally raw right now. But I think it was a good episode. They seemed to,
it was a good episode, but I'm not going to trust your word anymore.
And I'm going to try to work your trust back today.
You can try.
Okay.
We'll see.
Thank you. Today's episode is going to be really fun because I'm going to first start off with a question.
Oh, no.
It's a definitions question.
Oh, no.
Can you, without using your own name, define what a chaos bisexual is?
Without using your own name. Chaos bisexual is.
Oh, good, right?
I just exist. I feel like that's an answer. I don't need to say my name.
But in general.
Someone who is not defined by social constructs.
I don't know.
Or accepted social norms.
I don't know if it's causation or correlation.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Every person who identifies as bisexual in my life also has just like a really interesting aesthetic and doing something bold with their facial hair.
I shaved my mustache, I swear. Out of here.
I don't think this episode is going to get that personal, but just kind of something to sit in mind. I just want to point out, already funnier than the Dr. Ruth episode, where second paragraph I was like, the Nazis took power in 1920.
No, that sentence started with, I really should have reread these notes.
Because I read the warning about sex, and then I was like, some formatting issues here.
Yeah.
So, I got this from a website called binarythis.com.
Okay.
The title of their website, The Rise and Rise of the Disaster Bisexual.
Oh my God.
This is just an excerpt from that article.
Oh, no.
It is... A disaster bisexual is, just as it suggests on the can, loosely defined as a bisexual character or person who has chaotic energy or causes chaos. It seems to be a term used with some affection. Oh, what a disaster bisexual.
Right.
And often personal identification. I'm such a disaster bisexual. Say it in a mirror, Maia.
You want to talk about watching Funny Girl? You want to talk about it?
Don't look at me right now. That was the thing too at Wyoming, because you just end up in a school for so long,
Yeah.
you get so silo-brained.
Yeah.
The way we were elevating the craft of say it in a mirror
It was
that
so
tournament.
good. So good. Oh my God. We went to go see Funny Girl on Sunday right before we both left for
the
Christmas.
holiday.
Yeah. And the number of times I just looked over at Grant and he's just like, don't look at me.
And I'm staring rock solid ahead like, none of this applies to me. I don't know what you're looking at me for. I don't know what you're talking about.
There's so many moments where she was talking about like relationships and like a self-identity, and I was
A person can get lonely being that busy, and you turned your head like Chucky the Clown at me. I was like, don't talk to me right now.
say it in a mirror.
Quote, oh, what a disaster bisexual. And often personal, oh, I'm such a disaster bisexual, to which everyone replies, yes. That from the article, not me.
Ouch. Ouch. Ouch.
The disaster bisexual is not just your typical queer-coded villain, but rather an anti-hero. The term seems to pleasurably press the bruise of internalized homophobia. When you cannot corral your desires into a neat monosexual storyline, this can feel chaotic.
Yeah.
So, how do I want to say this? First, I love to use the word chaos bisexual, even for people who identify as gay or straight, right? Like, there are several people in our life where I'm like, chaos bisexual energy.
Yeah.
Especially when you are around a straight dude who's an ally. It's fun, and they do something silly, as straight dudes oftentimes
Like Jacob is a chaos bisexual.
100%. He's a happily married man to a woman.
I don't think he's ever identified as anything but straight, but he is a chaos
classic
bisexual.
chaos bisexual.
Yeah.
And do you know who is sometimes, like only on Sundays? Casey.
Yeah. He has his moments. He's been really whimsical lately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he has been very whimsical, but he'll also then like assemble like a beer table for the backyard, and it's like,
why are you so frat right now?
It's just both of those people are the kind of people that I could see living on a plantation in Hawaii and accidentally getting trapped, you know?
Yeah,
kind
because
of
like, that is now my definition
100%.
of chaos bisexual.
Just step by step, nothing further, that's it.
Yeah. Episode 12, if you missed it. Episode 12.
So today we're going to talk about kind of a historically famous chaos bisexual that you have never heard of before. This falls into the era of like, saw a 2-sentence meme on like a Instagram page that was like wild people from history that you don't know about, right? Then it blooms into a full story. It's the yeast starter pack.
I want you to know, what time frame are we going to?
1600s.
I'm not going to say anything
early
before I know.
Do you potentially know this person?
I got worried at the theme because it seemed kind of obvious to me.
Really?
And so it was what I was researching when we were in Wyoming.
But you never let me see or anything.
No,
Every time
I never
walked
let
by
it
you,
see.
like close your computer.
Yeah. But it is in the same time frame, so we'll see.
Like late 1600s, early 1700s.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe it's more mid 1700s. I think it might be more mid 1700s.
Is her character also a chaos bisexual?
I think I saw something in like maybe playing at that they might be.
Okay. This is a part of this person's personality. This person's going to define the genre of chaos bisexual.
Because I was going to continue researching it today, and then I was like, you should wait. You should just wait. There's no reason to put in more effort
I think it's
if
so
you're
funny
worried about
that
it.
you think that the answer felt obvious. Rumor has it, because I was going to do Adele for a while.
Yeah, okay. I knew it. I fucking knew it because
I'm not though. That's
I know
not who
it was
I'm
on a
doing.
Patreon, and I was like, "What's the next theme?" And you were like, "I'm playing between Rumor Has It and The Fat Lady Sings, and I was like, you're covering Adele, aren't you?
Yeah, for real, I was kind of tiptoeing around. This was in the backup, and then this one became the full story. I love how we're like trying to figure out if we're doing the same episode or not, and when in 2 sentences I'm going to say the name of the person.
I know.
That
well,
we're
I wanted to get this out just in case.
Scooby-Doo action happening.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a famous chaos bisexual.
In the 1600s, wow.
Late 1600s, early 1700s. She's French. And I want you listeners to know right now that I have taken some time to put pronunciation guides into this. Good. I'm probably still going to get it wrong, but I'm going to be getting closer, and I'm not going to be doing more. So you need to be happy with that or quiet. Okay?
We're lucky that he's even trying. He notably hates the French language.
It just needs stronger sounds and obvious vowels.
It has so many vowels. It's like only vowels. You could get away with not saying a single consonant.
Right. But like...
Yeah, say a single French word.
English vowels are very clear as to how you are supposed to pronounce them. And French, it's like, what do you mean that I could literally make an L sound right now?
Okay. I'm going to let you die on that hill. That's fine.
Do you want to hear one more story about chaos bisexuals?
Yes,
or,
I really
before
do.
I tell them the title?
Yeah.
So a big part of this reminded me, in part because I was finishing up this research at home, of what it was like to go back to your hometown in your like early to mid 20s after college and just start swiping on like December 23rd because it specifically told you which one of your classmates finally proved you were right. Like which one of your high school and college classmates finally came to publicly address the truth that I suspected they held all along, you know?
I like that you're acting like you don't immediately just start swiping on...
Sure. No, but like
December
what I'm trying
23rd.
to say is that now that I'm in my early 30s, like that excitement of like discovery
you're
is
not
gone.
gonna,
Like most of it's like settled, right? They're always they're either out or never going out, you know? Not always, right? Everyone's journey is their own, but you know,
most of the time.
In the early to mid 20s,
They're usually figured it out.
It was a bonanza.
Yeah.
And just a bunch of chaos bisexuals.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened to them? I don't. Let's get going. Okay. As we get started, I have all of my sources, of course, linked in the top of the document, but shout out to the Los Angeles Public Library, who had an incredible article, and then a podcast from the BBC that helped add some stuff as well. There was a bunch of other stuff, but those two particularly helped create a really clear storyline for a person whose storyline gets kind of
muddled.
Yes.
Nice.
So without further ado, I'm going to talk to you about the French woman Julie de Bodney.
Excellent. We're fine. We're
Great.
fine.
I was like, again, would be shocked. I didn't even know about her. Now I'm super excited for who you're doing, though.
Well, my story could be a bunch of people.
Okay.
That's where I'm
like
going to leave
a
it.
village people?
No, it's just like there's a lot of people mentioned. And a lot of them have varying degrees of involvement in... It'll make more sense later.
It's that
It'll make more
TikTok
sense
audio
later.
right now. He's gay. He has an interest in classical music. There's many interesting things about him. So we are talking about Julie de Bodney, who was born in 1673 to Gaston de Bodney. De Bonny? Probably. Gaston, Julie's dad, was a secretary to Louis de Lorraine Guise, Comte de... I wrote it down somewhere. I can actually pronounce this one. Comte de Armagnac.
Cool.
Got it.
Sure.
A master of the house of King Louis XIV. So, because I
Louis?
just said a bunch of... Yeah, King Louis XIV. They say Louis.
Yeah, you did.
My friend's Louis spells his name that way. Sorry. King Louis XIV. So, since I just said 8,000 names and none of that was clear,
Yep, sure.
our girl Julie is born to a guy named Gaston. Okay. We know actually almost nothing about her mother.
Okay.
Gaston's her dad. Gaston works for the Comte de Armagnac. And that's the royal. So she's not born royal, but she's
Okay.
born into like kind of one of those rare French middle class families that like works and serves the royals.
but isn't a royal.
Right. And then
Okay.
Comte de Armagnac is high up in the French king's like system, right?
Right.
So while they are not in it themselves, they are supporting a person
What's
high
Julie's
up in that
dad's
world.
name?
Gaston.
Gaston, right. And then Gaston is the one that serves Louis.
The Comte d'Armagnac.
Okay.
And Comte d'Armagnac
Armagnac
serves
serves Louis.
Louis.
Okay.
Yes. And Comte d'Armagnac's position is the master of the horse for King Louis XIV. While little appears to be known for his mother, I was like, Maia's dream job.
Yeah, literally. If I could get paid to just like take care of horses all day.
In France.
Okay, actually, horses are really hard to take care of. Never mind. I thought about that for 2 seconds.
Didn't we do a whole podcast episode about how it's really hard to take care of horses sometimes?
No, I just mention it a lot because it frustrates me.
What about that story about that equestrian who shot a person?
Yeah, that was more about how unhinged
Jealousy.
equestrian people can be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still sounds like a hard job of taking care of horses.
Horses walk on their toenails and yeah.
Oh my God, don't make them leave. We're at the start of the story. It's so gross.
I've mentioned that before.
I know and I hate it. Okay. So Gaston was a master swordsman and a habitual gambler.
Nice.
Drinker and participant in other aspects of the nightlife. Mr. de Bodney passed on his skills and vices to his daughter, Julie, which is complicated because while none of those traits are necessarily disqualifiers for the aristocracy, Julie isn't aristocratic.
Yeah, so that's fine. Kind of.
Like, she does have a job she has to wake up for in the morning. Her job isn't just lay around, eat figs. Like, she does have a job she has to do, whereas the aristocracy get a chance to, like, drink and gamble well into the night and then just kind of, like, you know, mess around and wake up whenever they want. Like, that's the dangerous part of, like, okay, like, yeah, like, you're kind of in the world, but then you're kind of not in the world, right?
It's like as if the world was being able to work from home and Julie is Grant.
Right. Yeah.
End of sentence.
And so that's kind of the world she's born into, but also like the kind of man that raises her.
Okay.
Who seems to be like quite a fun time.
Okay.
For everything that gets written about Julie, nothing bad gets written about her father.
Of course.
Granted, very little gets written about her father. But they're just kind of like, yeah, her father was a good time. She was his only daughter, and he really took care of her. So, Sieur de Bodney saw that Julie, his only child, received an education usually reserved for boys at the time.
Like that. Nice.
Learning academic subjects alongside the future court pages. So that's something that he did for the Comte d'Armagnac. He helped train the future pages of the court, right? So people who would like
pages, okay,
so
right.
people who would like take notes, like help run the actual administrative part of it all, which was not something the aristocratic people wanted to do.
That's where the word pages came from.
Yeah. Wow. Are you just learning that, or are you making fun of me?
No, I just put that together in my head.
Okay.
It's been my brain has not been working at full capacity for like 3 weeks, guys.
I'm also the first person you've talked to today.
No, I live with Casey.
And I have 2 dogs.
Yeah, that I talk to a lot.
All the time.
Yeah.
So her dad's a learned man, partier, educates all these smart people that are going to serve the court, and just throws Julie right on in there.
Nice.
Now, here's the first skill that's going to surprise you. What are some skills every learned French boy who's about to serve the aristocracy need to know? Mathematics, arithmetic, sure,
How to be
all
a
the
little
core
bit of a
subjects. Yeah, you're right. They learn fencing.
Wait, the reel that I sent you, it's like the
What one? You have
the
sent
gay
me
Olympics.
25. Oh, that one.
But it's like someone was making fun of what some conservative said about the Olympics, saying that like the gays need their own Olympics, except they use a lot of slurs instead. And so this person, obviously a queer like individual, like sits in front of her like camera and just is like, this is my proposition for the gay Olympics, and like goes through all of these things and is like, oh, what was it? I can't remember any of the other ones at all, but one of them is
it was like lesbian U-Haul packing.
Yeah, just
non-binary bouldering.
Yes.
regular women's soccer.
Yeah, non-monogamous.
Olympic swim trials.
Bouldering. And then one of them was like lesbian fencing, not to be confused with lesbian fencing.
Yes.
And one of them was like actual like fencing with a like sword, and then the other one is just building fences.
It tickles me how much you find that joke so funny, because I find it
made
funny
me
too.
scoffed.
I know.
Like out
I know
loud.
it did.
Yeah, it was good.
You sent me the video, and then you were like, "Did you see the part about the fences?"
Because it was funny.
Well, I have great news for you. Julie Debogny, actually an incredible fencer.
Hot again.
So, like, for reals, that's actually that's actually might be the title of this episode. We can't do that to them.
No.
She took up fencing very early on, around the age of 12. To be good at fencing as a woman is unheard of, because to be fencing as a woman at the time is unheard of.
What is this, the Parent Trap?
Yeah, a little bit, yes. One of them lives in France. No, London, sorry.
London, yeah.
She becomes really good at the sport too. Not really good for a woman, just like hands down very good at fencing.
Right.
Julie was unusual for competing against men. Moreover, she was also known to be the best fencer of her group. Julie took up her lifelong practice of dressing in men's attire during this time.
Yeah.
During her fencing era youth is when she first starts to be recorded for wearing men's clothing, potentially, originally, for pragmatic purposes. So, this is, I teased out right away that we were going to be talking about a chaos bisexual. So we have a spoiled only daughter who's maybe only being raised by her father, who is being sent to school with like all boys, essentially, learning how to fence, and is out fencing all of them, and starts to dress in like
boy.
trousers and like
in
shirts with buttons.
male clothing,
Yeah. From the research that I've done, it doesn't seem like she ever felt discomfort with her feminine identity.
Yeah.
And we'll see that later in kind of the career that she takes. It
wasn't like a dysphoria thing.
No, it doesn't seem like a dysphoria, although, like, you know, always want to make space that, like,
Yeah.
those people have existed forever as well, and have found ways to express themselves throughout history as well.
It's probably just like, I want to fence, and that's hard to do in a dress.
She was basically, modern day example, good at basketball, just wore basketball shorts everywhere, right? Like, and I get that so much.
Yeah.
Hot again.
That was me as a kid. I just refused to wear like dresses and skirts on principle.
Right now, it's 23 degrees outside. And I was like, it'll be warm inside Maia's house. I don't need chinos. I'm just going to wear shorts.
Fair enough.
So she's learned. She's a fencer. She's gay. There's many interesting things about her. But
Does she like classical music?
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
Oh boy, is that on the head? Is that on the nose? We're gonna get to that in a second. And during this time, two things happen. The first one, sad. Her dad dies
That's tough.
when she is like 13.
I'm assuming mom is not around.
Mom's not around. Mom's never written about anywhere.
So we don't know if she was alive or just left or
Truthfully,
something.
mom might not have made it out of the childbirth of Julie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is a little bit of what I've gathered.
Seems like a very 1600 thing to do.
Yeah, because there's not even a reference to like Gaston d'Armagnac's Gaston de Bagny's like wife or his second wife or other children or heirs or anything like that.
Okay.
It's kind of a small household, and then he dies. But fortunately, his boss, the Comte d'Armagnac, is going to look out for Julie.
Hell yeah.
Because he's sleeping with her. Yeah, it's awful. Yep. Like, I want to be like, it was the 1600s. It was a different time.
Still gross.
And she was still 14, and he was 42.
Oh my
100%.
God.
I'm sorry. No, I'm wrong. 46.
That's not better.
Nope, not at all. I also, like, there are so many blurred lines here, because not only is that patently illegal in our modern society today, probably still frowned upon at the time. The Comte d'Armagnac was her dad's boss, and was thus like a clearly huge figurehead in her own life.
That's
and
such a weird dichotomy, like power trip.
Yeah, well, let's talk about power dynamics for a second.
Yeah.
He is essentially her lifeline to the aristocracy, which is what she's been trained for. She can't actually get a government job because she's a woman. And without any real family relations, she would fare poor on the marriage market.
True.
And so this Comte d'Armagnac, who is more than almost 3 times her age, is like, hey there, I'll take care of you. And either out of love or out of necessity or both or Stockholm syndrome or whatever else, she says yes. And she
sometimes you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Now, here's where the story gets a little complicated in the way that it's hard to understand social mores from the 1600s.
Right.
So around 1687, when she's 14 years old, because she's born in 1673, her father dies.
Okay.
She's having an affair with her dad's boss that might have started before, the Comte d'Armagnac.
Oh my God. How old is she again?
14.
Yeah. Okay.
And the Comte d'Armagnac then does Julie, our girl Julie, several favors. First, he arranges a marriage to her to a clerk, right? So a person working in the administration.
So that she can stay in.
Right, that she can stay in. He marries her off to Sieur Jean de Maupin. Maupin, M-A-U-P-I-N. Maupin? Maupin? How do you say it?
I don't know.
Maupin?
Please say peen one more time
Maupin?
into the mic.
Maupin? And that's where she gets her married name.
When she's
Julie
14.
Maupin. Yes. But then the Comte d'Armagnac does a second cool thing because he's in charge of like all the government aristocracy and stuff. He sends just her husband to the south of France.
All right. I'm reading a book right now that...
Yeah, you are.
I'm reading a book right now that I'm mentioning now because I'm reading it for part 1 of the next theme, Two Best Friends. And it's not really like a research thing. It's more of like I'm like listening to it on Audible and just like it's providing a lot of backstory to the story that I'm reading. But anyway, there's this whole thing where the like wife is cheating on the husband in like the very beginning in like the prologue essentially. And there's like this portion where we're getting like the husband's like narrative and he's just like he got the feeling she didn't mind when he left for days at a time. Yeah.
It's a powerful thing you just said right there.
It's because she was sleeping with like everyone.
Not to keep bringing up the Wyoming trip, but I'm passing out room keys for when we're staying at this hotel. And it's a school trip, so there's lots of rooms that have like 3 or 4 kids in each of them, like 2 beds, whatever. I call out the name of just 2 kids and hand them the key. And someone was like, "Hey, why do they each get their own bed?" And I'm looking at my list and I go, "It looks here like it's a king room, so there's just 1 bed in that room, right? 2 kids, 1 bed, that's fine." Right, literally a child behind me turns to me and goes, "And there's only 1 bed left at the end."
Oh, I remember that.
Like whip around at this child and I go, no, not
but
right
say
now.
it a little louder for
Maya.
Maya.
Right. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, no. But go tell her real quick. What you just said.
It's really funny.
Like, do not start that rumor, but there's one person that's going to really appreciate
you really
that
need
joke.
to say that too. And I did.
Would we clarify that was a joke?
Yeah.
Okay. So, her husband, Sieur Jean de Maupin, gets sent down to the south of France to work as like an administrator and like tax counter essentially and things like that. And she gets to hang out up in Paris with the Comte d'Armagnac. However, accounts vary as to whether the Comte d'Armagnac became fed up with our girl Julie and her wild ways.
Did she get too old for him?
Or, just don't forget his name is all I'm going to try to say to you right now.
Armagnac?
Armagnac. Or our girl Julie might have fallen in love with somebody else.
Hell yeah. I like that version. I hope it's a woman.
Yeah, so here's what I wrote. Or Julie herself became bored with the like 47-year-old man at that point.
Well, yeah.
But soon she became involved with a fencing master named Saran. So hot. That's so
like
hot.
Saran wrap?
Are you asking how to spell it? S-E with an accent, R-A-N-N-E. Saran.
So like kind of.
Yeah, no, you're not far off. Literally,
my father, the inventor of Saran wrap.
I put literally for my pronunciation guide, S-I-R-N.
Saran. That's
Saran.
good. That's good.
So Saran's this fencing master. Obviously, he's in the court. Fencing's one of the things they watch and do to like amuse themselves because they don't have cell phones or music or anything. Right, exactly. And
entertain me.
Julie's just like, my God, he is something else. And then Saran, what's a red flag?
What's like any red flag?
Right.
Talks to his exes too much.
Worse, kills a man. Yeah. Saran kills a man in a duel. Which is,
I mean, that's pretty normal for the time.
So it's bad.
Right?
It's bad for two reasons. One, because it's a murder, and two, because dueling's illegal.
Okay,
and they
that
are
does change
actively
things.
trying to enforce it. And so Saran goes to Julie, and he's like, "Julie Maupin." Direct eye contact too. Julie Maupin, mi amor, mi amore.
So he's Italian now?
I don't know. Listen, I'm having fun with European names is what's going on, okay? I'm a Nebraska boy, and I've been reminded of that recently, okay? I'm having fun with names. He's like, Jules, I got to get out of here because of the whole dueling's illegal, especially when you murder them kind of thing.
Want to come?
Come along. and she's like, where are you going?
She said, son of a bitch, I'm in.
Right. She's just 100%. She goes, where are you going? And he goes, south of France. And she goes, I think I have a husband down there.
Yeah, she's like, oh, that's tough.
Yeah, I think, let's go. I know people in the area.
Let's go. In the area.
And so they flee Paris, pursued by Nicolas Gabriel de la Reynie, Lieutenant General of the Police and founder of the first modern military police force.
Fun.
And, sorry, who's the name of the police officer in Les Mis? It's not Javert.
Is it? Because the other one is Jean Valjean.
Oh, so it is Javert.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Javert is inspired based off of this guy.
Nice. I'm going to Google that before we run with that because that seems like something people will be mad about. Yes, he is the police officer.
Amazing. This is the right story. Cool. If we open, I also checked something.
Okay, wait. I literally just Googled Javert because I just needed to like see like a picture of the character to know. But then you know how Google does that thing like people also ask, and then it has a bunch of other questions that people ask. Why is Javert so obsessed with Valjean? Next question. Exactly. Is Javert good or bad? Next question.
Are people born wicked,
or do they have wickedness thrust upon them? What was Javert's problem? That was good.
So Javert, also known as Nicolas Gabriel de la Reynie.
Nice.
Thanks. Is pursuing Saran and I guess kind of now also Julie. Julie hasn't broken the law. Only her hot fencer boyfriend, lover, Saran. And also, the whole episode is titled Rumor Has It. A lot of these sources that we get are written after some of these people's deaths, but only like a decade or two afterwards.
Okay.
And so
it's probably accurate, but maybe has some twists and turns that weren't there
That'll
before.
be a theme that we see in the middle part of this episode. But basically what I'm trying to let you guys know right now is Saran either fully kills the man or simply engages in the duel and wounds him and has to flee.
Still has to flee.
There are going to be lots of moments where you can kind of goosebumps book choose your adventure between like the like hyperbole and the like more boring.
We need more of those.
Yeah, 100%. Like for adults, 100%.
Yeah, I want like a fairy smut version of that.
I know you do. How about you finish the fairy flut on your plate, and then we can get you more.
I think there's like 16 hours left in this book. I have a lot left to go.
Talk to you in February.
Yeah. Well, talk to me on Monday because that's when I technically have to have it done by. No, wait. No, I don't. Next Monday. Sorry. Continue your story. I'm lost.
So they flee to the south of France.
Okay.
The couple traveled the countryside, making their living by giving fencing demonstrations, which is cute because she's such a great fencer as well. I mean, they probably meant in the fencing stables. But I think it's funny too that it's like I'm on the run. Like it'd be like today, it'd be like I'm on the run for shooting a man. So every town I go to, I'm gonna give renowned gun show performances. Yeah. Like there's just like no hiding of their tracks.
Guns at this point? Like was the duel with a gun or
no? It was definitely fencing and with the sword.
Okay.
Yeah. You have guns, but that's not what they're talking about right now.
Can you kill someone with a fencing sword?
Yes. Yes, you can.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Like an old-timey fancy sword?
Because I don't think they're actually using what you think of as a fancy sword today.
I was going to say, because they're kind of bendy now.
Yeah. No, they're definitely designed to not kill today.
They're designed to touch.
They weren't always that way. Saying that with confidence because of, again, what's in the middle part of the story.
My name is Neo Montoya. You killed my father.
Yeah,
Prepare
100%.
to die.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Every favorite trope you have, it's going to come in this. Like, you guys are like, Grant, this story's been kind of like dry so far. Like, sure, a couple jokes at Maia's expense, but like, other than that, like, it's kind of dry. We're getting there, listener. Also, Saran is her third lover already. We have the Comte d'Armagnac, technically a husband, Maupin.
Who knows if they... I mean, no, if he was in the aristocracy. Fuck me, dude.
Also, he wasn't. He was a clerk.
Okay, because at some level of like royalty, you have to
consummate the marriage.
Consummate in front of people, right?
The important thing is she's not with either of them right now.
Yeah, it
she was with
doesn't matter.
Saran
Nothing
in the
matters.
south of France, giving fencing demonstrations.
I love that.
They would both be dressed in male attire, but she advertised herself as a woman.
Okay.
She was like, "This is just what I wear when I fence, but I'm a woman." And because she was so good at fencing, a couple of times these French peasants would be like, "That ain't a woman," and then she'd just bare her breast at them.
Hell yeah.
So if you heckled just a little bit, you got dinner and a show. I don't know what the dinner is. You got a show and a show.
You got a show and a show.
You got a show and a different kind of show.
Yeah.
Bring the whole kids down. Family fun.
Yeah. An anatomy lesson.
Part of me is like, did she do it once and everyone was like, proved her point? Or was it like a bit they do like when you go to the Renaissance Festival or whatever, you know, where it's like, don't make me bare my breast. Well, there they are, you know?
Well, it's like the pirates that I covered, the two that were women would like, there were legends that they would fight battles like without a shirt on just to prove to men that they killed, like you got killed by a woman.
Right. Also probably a little distracting. And also, it doesn't sound like it was bad for ticket sales.
No. Yeah. Men are men. Men are men.
Since they both also, this is so you coded, this whole relationship.
I love this.
Since they both also had good voices, they added singing to their performances.
That's
so it was
funny.
just her and her badass, illegal, on the run boyfriend, Saran, just in the south of France, avoiding her husband.
On the way,
showing
somehow
her
meeting her
breasts,
husband.
fencing with real dangerous swords, singing. Just kind of living her life. Yeah, absolutely. They travel with Saran. She had her first performance with professional opera singing during this time.
Wow.
I know. So you're like, she's a fan of classical music. I'm like, yes. Also, what's
Opera
crazy
singing
too?
is like no joke too.
Correct. And French opera is very new because Italian opera is not all
like
that old during this
classic,
time,
yeah.
right? And it's the classic.
Yeah.
French opera during this time is less than 100 years old. She's
Yeah.
kind of on the ground floor of French opera singing.
Yeah.
Which also then probably also made that art form a bit more accessible and open, right? Like the schools for it were still developing and stuff.
Yeah, probably.
So even though she had no formal training, her pleasing voice, natural gift for music, and physical attractiveness.
Oh, nice. That's a chaos bisexual.
She was just really hot and really good at art.
So many men want her that she was just like, I'll do what I want.
I'm just gonna kind of have a little bit of fun for a little bit. I'm just gonna kind of,
Yeah, I'm gonna find myself.
moisturized in my flow, in my unbothered era, Do you know who else knows that quote and says it word for word with me? Jacob.
Of course he does. Of course he does.
Oh, that's the other thing too. Speaking of like chaos bisexuals, my brother, not really, but you know how cultural he is.
Yes.
Like he's in touch with things, right?
Yeah.
My sister-in-law, Taylor, his wife, looks at me on this trip and she goes, "Oh my God, you see that interview with so-and-so on Z-Way?" And I was like, "I absolutely did."
Yeah.
And he goes, "What's Z-Way?" And I go, "What? What do you mean, what's Z-Way?" It's crazy for someone like you to be like, "What's
not
Z-Way?"
know. Yeah.
It'd be like hanging out with a person who's like, "Hell yeah, touchdown Nebraska." Wait, hold on, what's an extra point? Like, what are you talking about? This is foundational to the culture, Griffin. Back to the story.
So now's where I ask, what's Z-Way?
You don't know what Z-Way is?
I don't think so. I mean, I probably have seen something.
So what she's most famous for is her interviews. Z-Way.
Oh,
she interviews people.
and it's like a joke. Like
it's
she
a joke,
asks
but
the,
famously hard questions,
Yes.
but it's a joke. She
Okay,
has
yeah.
an incredible
Yes, I have
interview
seen that.
with
I
George
think
Santos.
Yes, yeah.
I've been like,
We watched
watch
this.
and learn.
We did watch
I
those
want
together.
this.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
find problematic people
I
to put
thought you
on.
were saying like Z-way as like
Z-Way.
I was like
Apple?
yeah. It's girl. We should learn how to be voice actors. We'd be good at it.
I think we could, with all the free time that we have.
Yeah, so much free time. Someone on Instagram was like, so, like, how much time do you spend on this? And I was like, do you want the breakdown? Because I don't know. I don't know that I want to think about it.
Agreed.
But I'll tell you because no one ever asks me that. So I'll tell you in detail.
So she becomes a fencing, flashing opera singer.
That's incredible.
Starts working at the Opera de Marseille, the big French city in the south of France. A lack of formal music education was not a hindrance for an opera career at the time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And her natural singing and acting talent and prodigious memory compensated for her inexperience. Okay. So she is traveling around the south of France with this fencer that she fell in love with, but who is a bad boy because he's fencing or dueling, and that's against the law.
Where are you?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you.
I'm so
just
sorry.
Like a huge like hair sweep every time.
Yeah.
Also, her husband is probably around here somewhere, but is not with her. And she is doing more singing than fencing at this point. In fact, she kind of even has like a job. And it's around this time that we see her name kind of switch from Julie de Bodney or Julie Maupin to just her stage name, Maupin.
How do you spell it?
Maupin.
Okay.
La Maupin, using her married name that she got from a man that she never really met or loved.
Yeah.
Julie, aka La Maupin, who I'm going to refer to her now, is performing in the south of France, building up a theatrical reputation. She is, do you want to guess how old she is right now?
20 at the oldest.
On the cusp of her 16th birthday.
Oh, man.
Her dad died 2 years ago.
That's a crazy arc.
Yeah. It's like we all have the same 24 hours, I guess.
Sometimes I do forget in like this time period, there was so much less to like worry about when just considering making
to pull
like,
your attention.
Yeah. Like, yes, it was harder physically and everything, but like you could be like, let's go.
Right.
And like you could have everything, especially if you like had
all
the
practice
resources.
Singing on the 40-day wagon ride south with nothing to distract me.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. So she's 16 and she's learning all of these crazy skills.
Yeah.
And it's while performing at the Opera de Marseille that she has the courage to trust love one more time. Every time.
And then she meets Jean de Clisson.
No. But she does meet a woman. Hell yeah. Also, I put here in my notes, I felt so much like Carrie Bradshaw this morning.
Yeah.
Because I was wearing this sweater, which is kind of like baggier or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like typing and I had my little French roasted cup of coffee and I'm looking out my window and I'm like wondering about the love lives of people that aren't me. And I'm like, oh. Am I Carrie Bradshaw right now?
Gossip Girl.
It's like when someone's going to see me from stage at an opera, you know? Also, second story in the last month, if you count John Wilkes Booth's father, where I'm like, and then they fell in love while one of them was on stage because I'm channeling my dream right now.
Do you want to get on stage or do you want to meet someone that's on stage?
No, I want to be the one on stage.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
I
just needed you to say it.
Kind of silly that you asked. I'll say it in a mirror. Do you got one? Where is it?
Yeah, right there.
I'm not going to bend like that. But.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so she falls in love with a woman. Don't worry, the woman is nameless, despite many of my attempts.
I hate history.
She falls in love with the daughter of a local wealthy merchant. The daughter's family is not a fan of La Maupin for several reasons. One, she's essentially an orphan with no family connections.
Okay.
Two, she's married. Three, she's in the south of France because she came down here with her criminal boyfriend, or I guess ex-boyfriend now. She's a woman.
Everything about her is wrong.
And while that might have been a bit more socially acceptable, like in the aristocracy at the time, for a more conventional middle-class merchant family, not so much. And they are like, well, we have a perfect solution. This family sends their unnamed daughter, who's in love with Julie de Bodney, a.k.a. La Maupin, to a convent in Avignon.
What do you do about a problem like Maria?
Hey, Maia.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is sending a lesbian to a convent a good way to get her to act straight?
No, because you're sending them to a place with only women.
Only
like,
women. What? Also, and this is kind of crazy, convents have a all are welcome policy. So they did the most lesbian thing imaginable and moved in together.
Wait, so
La Maupin's like,
also
what?
was like, I'll be a nun too.
Great, amazing. Yes, 100%.
Also, imagine you're already a social outcast, right? Imagine that you already don't fit in with the social norms. But one of the big things that is a social norm is being super religious. So you can cover up your not social norm part with like an insane social norm and move into a convent.
Correct.
And be surrounded by a bunch of
other women
who may have come for the same reasons or may have not. But like,
or
regardless,
might eventually develop some of those kind of feelings.
And you like don't necessarily
else.
need to talk to your family at any point.
Right.
You're
vows of silence,
incredible.
Devotion. It's a cover for a lot of stories.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out it's so gay that they basically move in together.
I love that.
They were like, my family won't accept us. And she's like, what if we move into a communal housing situation?
That is the gayest thing that they could have done.
Okay, I have fully put my notes down for a second for this next part of the story.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I would have just kind of free verse it for a little bit. So La Maupin and her girlfriend are at this convent together.
Okay.
And it's cool and it's groovy. But there's an issue. They're not allowed to be just super gay around each other. They can be kind of gay, but to be the full gay that they want, the full experience, fries and a drink, they can't stay there.
Yeah.
And so they wait for their opportunity.
They run away.
And an opportunity arrives. But they're gay, Maia, so they can't just run away. Don't forget, this merchant family is really well connected.
Oh, no.
And so our girl La Maupin hatches a plan. It gets a credit to La Maupin.
Could have been whoever.
Could have been the girlfriend as well.
Yeah.
But from what I know about La Maupin, it does feel like she's kind of the driver of a lot of action in her own life. So here's what happens. An elderly nun passes away while they're there. And they're like digging the grave and they're getting her like body ready. And they might even like partially bury the grave, like the body. And then they all go to bed.
I'm so scared for what you're going to say next.
And then La Maupin.
I am so scared.
Slunked out to the graveyard and fishes that body out of the grave.
Do they pull like a Weekend at Bernie's situation?
And then they go to the girlfriend's room and they place the body in bed.
Just the most unhinged goddamn thing.
They set it on fire.
All of those steps were unnecessary except for the last one.
They set the room on fire and then run out of there.
So they just assume that whoever died was the daughter?
The girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so that way when she's gone, the family will mourn, but like be like,
Not look
okay,
for her.
well, don't need to go search for it or anything.
Bro.
And so she set a dead nun's body on fire inside a nunnery to run away with her girlfriend.
That's wild.
It was this one little story right here that was like, here's a story from history I bet you did not know. And I saw it and I was like, A, did not know that.
B, tell me more.
Let's get into it. Also, crazy parallels to the John Wilkes Booth story, another building on fire.
Yeah.
Hey, remember that time I did the episode about environmental terrorism?
Yeah.
And before you knew that's what my topic was, I kept looking at buildings being like, God, I bet she'd be pretty on fire.
Yeah, you did.
I lived that story for a little bit.
We can't even tell our audience what kinds of buildings you said that about because we would get on so many lists. I was like, are you okay?
I only identified like 2 or 3. Like we recorded that episode pretty quickly.
In the span of like 2 blocks,
yeah,
though.
Duh. We were downtown. A lot of
Exactly.
buildings.
We were downtown.
Okay. So her and her lover escape into the night in all of the chaos. They hope that, recovering this dead, burnt to a crisp body in the room would stop the authorities from looking at them. Because remember, the unnamed lover's family, wealthy and probably pretty well connected. Mm-hmm. However, the plot was discovered by the authorities. Maybe, just maybe, because there was no old dead nun body to bury. And also maybe because the second nun's also gone. right?
Yeah,
Like,
there's 2 nuns.
right,
You
they
only
didn't
accounted
set
for
both
one
on
body. Yeah.
fire. But the second one was now just missing. So, anyways, La Maupin is sentenced to death in absentia by fire.
Oh my gosh.
I put literally death by fire. What the?
Yeah.
She also might have fought several men when on the run and killed 2 of them. Couldn't verify
Badass.
that across stories. It's really complicated, this story, and we'll get into that in a second. But that does explain why she was sentenced to death.
I love also that back in this day, it wasn't just I sentence you to death. It was like I sentence you to death by
Right,
like
but here's how I want you to die for
and
this
it's not
crime.
even like now it's like,
And
okay,
it was
we
just
have
a
like
crime of love. It was a
Yeah.
crime of passion,
Yeah.
you know? Sure, they set a historical building on fire and desecrated the body of an old nun who had died. But other than that, who else got hurt?
Yeah.
Except for maybe the 2 men we killed on the road during our escape.
What do you think the worst way to be executed is?
No, I'm not going to answer that question.
What?
Okay, so there was this thing in an ancient Assyria called the boats, where they would take 2 boats and like flip them so that way it created like a shell, and they would tie you down in it, and they'd have your arms and your legs sticking out from it, and they'd cut holes so that way like bugs could fly in, and then
You have told me about this.
yeah, they cover you in milk and honey, and the bugs would just slowly eat you because the top shell that you're like trapped
You would probably
under.
die from like exposure first,
Well,
right?
the top shell was there to protect you from a
Yeah.
lot of those elements.
Okay.
Like you're drying out, but it's really the bug eating your face off while you're alive. The boats is absolutely I'm flipping that over and I'm drowning. Like I'm not doing that.
Okay, that was a lot darker than I thought.
I don't know. That's not a cheery question, Maia.
I wasn't really thinking
Sorry.
like torture
Drowning.
methods.
Is
I
that
was
what
thinking,
you
I was thinking like fire, water.
I have a great history education. You can't ask me that question.
I also did take you on a tour of just like
Ghosts
torture
in
methods in Prague. So that's on me. That one's on me.
What's your answer? Fire?
I feel like fire. Like, cause that's, I mean, like the worst part about what you said is that you like live for so long
Right.
after like the execution method starts.
Right.
So I think fire is like, cause you live for a shocking amount of time
Right.
when you're on fire. I feel
But
like
still only like minutes. Also, maybe we should add a trigger warning. This is an incredibly detailed conversation.
we're not really talking like gruesome stuff.
True.
Yeah. I think it's fine.
Yeah. I think there are so many horrific ways to die. Really kind of hoping for old age in my sleep, is where I'm going.
Sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Julie Badny, aka La Maupin,
Yes.
isn't going to have to be worried about being set on fire in the south of France by the local government, because this story might not actually be true.
Okay.
So it's called Rumor Has It for a reason. I want to point out
It's called
so
Rumor
far.
Has It because you wanted to do Adele first.
I mean, there was like a couple options, and I was like, the unifying theme is Adele. Sorry, the unifying theme is rumors.
Yeah.
not
It's
Adele.
not Adele.
It's called Rumors Has It for a reason. Everything that I've shared with you guys so far is, as far as we can, given the reality of the situation, been verified. This story is universally attached to La Maupin's name, but the actual truth of it is a lot more complicated and harder to verify.
She's buried in the Missouri Underground, isn't she? Springfield
Yeah, probably.
Underground.
We sent her all the way to Central America.
I can see that.
La Maupin lived, this is now like what I wrote and a combination of some sources. La Maupin lived in an era during a really tense friction between the church morals and these new morals. See, in the last 100 years before, the Protestant Reformation had happened, and the organized Catholic Church in France had lost a lot of power and was trying to claw it back.
Okay.
So this time itself is kind of defined by this push and pull between new morals, new perspectives, what's okay, and this much older kind of perception of like how men and women are supposed to act and all of that stuff. So in other words, this story might have been crafted specifically.
It's like propaganda. Essentially.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because it puts the church as a victim. A nun
Ugh.
is burnt and a church is burnt.
Yeah.
And the righteous, right? Because it's
Sure.
like, see, they ran off and they're murderers and they defiled this old woman. And that's what these new morals get you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also potentially why the lover's name is not named.
Oh.
Right. because it might not be real.
True. Yeah,
right.
She might not have had this lover, is what you're saying?
La Maupin might not have had this lover, might not have ever been in a convent, might have never dug up a body and burnt it. Now, granted, there are other stories about her that lead me to be like, I mean, it's potentially true enough that it's worth mentioning in her biography.
Right.
It's not like she lived the rest of her life and you're just like, God, that'd be so out of character for her.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to the rest of her life, trust. But she's not alive. She was born in 1673. Not a spoiler.
What?
But it's like, there's a chance that this story is fabricated.
Yeah.
For instance, the nunnery burning story was possibly, at least has some origins to a story about a heterosexual couple that does this. A woman is in a convent sent there by her family because they're trying to separate her from her male lover.
Oh.
She sets the nun on fire in her own room, thus masking her death, and she'd be the only body you need to hide because it's just her leaving and not two. And then she steals a ladder, climbs over the fence, joins her husband. They travel off to Italy, where they get married, have 12 children.
No.
And then, as she gets older and she repents, she confesses to the church what she did. And the church reveals her secret, and her children don't inherit anything. In a classic kind of Grimm's fairy tale version of crime does not pay and will catch up with you, regardless of what you're trying to do.
Oh my God.
And that was written between
That's
two
insane.
letters. Yes. And so it's like, is this something that La Maupin did and then it became like a more conventional story to tell people, or did it get flipped and
one
it was actually
way or
heterosexual
another,
and applied?
it has a very different message of like authoritarian.
Correct.
Yeah.
The big takeaway that whoever has kept that story alive wanted to at least show initially was that like crime doesn't pay and that there's consequences for that kind of stuff, right? Which is funny because now in our era, we're like, girl boss queen, yes. Yeah. Set that nun's body on fire. Cremation. So why would they turn this little known story, really just a piece of gossip, potentially about two low-level heterosexuals, like not all that important, into something La Maupin was tagged with? Well, because of who she was, she had haters. Her sapphic relationships is one of the few things we can verify, at least later on in life. How far she was willing to go for love is a different story. This is a quote now from Lillian Faderman's book, Surpassing the Love of Men. She writes this about La Maupin.
That's such a cool fucking name for a book.
Right? And you're going to love this quote.
Yeah.
Quote, these works, in reference to these stories, these works were usually more than erotic. They were based on actual persons, women, who were, in every case, aggressive and unrelenting.
Unrepenting.
Unremitting. It's a direct quote. Sorry, babes. I have no idea what
I don't know what that word means.
But aggressive. We're using context clues. I think like an unapologetic is what they're trying to say. Not at all like the conventional 18th century ideal of femininity. These women have generally tread on the author's toes by their assertiveness. They had stepped out of line and behaved in unwomanly fashion, either by attempting to outsmart a man, or by imposing themselves on male business, or simply not extending to a man the deference he believed due to him. What better way to shame such women than to attribute to them fierce sexual appetites at a time when it was not proper for women to have them?
I fucking hate the patriarchy.
Like, for instance, about 80, 90 years later, Marie Antoinette was accused of having sapphic relationships with women.
Right.
And those rumors were printed on pamphlets and spread by revolutionaries at the time. And we can still see those pamphlets. Some of them have survived history and they're like recorded places.
Yeah.
And this now enters this really complicated element of queer history where it's like, is this proof that Marie Antoinette was at least a little sapphic, or are we buying 300-year-old propaganda?
Mm-hmm.
Like this person was queer tagged as a way to justify ultimately their execution. And are we now just buying into that narrative like, oh, yep, point proven, the original point of the propaganda all along?
That's a good point.
Right. So that fact complicates our search for queer history and historical figures because it asks if we are believing what was either their truth or intentional slander. Still, it's totally okay to view La Maupin as a chaos bisexual for a couple of reasons. First, other parts of her queerness, like her fierce independence, a courage to blaze her own trail, or even just a rejection of societal expectations around dueling, men's clothes, number of lovers you're supposed to have, etc., are everywhere in her story. And second, other than the nunnery burning down for her girlfriend, none of her other queer stories seem particularly vicious, even within the context of the time. Like the historical records we do have, both from that time itself and from the decades after when they were writing about her, honestly treat some of her sapphic relationships with women later on with like a tenderness or a like clinical acknowledgement without weighing in one way or the other, right?
So this particular convent story doesn't really add up in the context of the rest of the stuff that we think we know about her?
Right. So then again, that raises the question if it's true or not. Like this story is so vicious when everything else we have about her queerness is not vicious. But also her moving in to apartments with a girl is different than setting a building on fire, right? Like sometimes actions are actions.
Yeah.
They don't deserve good coverage.
Fair enough.
And that's what's fun. I mean, we've joked before. That's what's fun about history because it just ends up becoming this like big gossip sesh after a while.
Yeah.
But very hard to tell the truth there.
Right.
But it absolutely sets this foundation for who she is.
Right.
So she's on the run again.
Okay.
Do you want to take a guess now as to how old she is?
Now I'm going to say 18.
She's 17.
Okay, yeah.
She has done all of this in her life so far in 17. 3 years since her dad dies. Yeah. Comte Emiac, Saran, potentially joined a nunnery in Avion.
At least one of these is statutory rape. So like,
100%. 100%. So after a few months on the run with her girlfriend, either La Maupin gets kind of bored or the girlfriend gets kind of bored, but the girlfriend goes back to her family. And La Maupin is like, hey, great. Okay. Like, I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
You go do that. I'm going to work on my music career. I'm going to support myself by fencing and dueling. Not dueling, but like fencing demonstrations. And also by singing in like pubs and places like that. And so in an inn in Via Perdue, she meets a young man, the Comte d'Aubert, who mistakes her for a man. Challenges her to a duel. And
she
because
wins.
she's not afraid to duel, she says, bitch, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Of course they duel. Of course they win. In winning...
She wins?
She wins.
Okay.
In winning, of course, she injures him a little bit.
Nice.
So, of course, she nurses him back to health and they become lovers.
I love her.
I do too.
She's
Also,
living all the tropes.
Like, as a person who teaches high school, that's right about the age of 17-year-old development.
Yeah.
100% cognitive development there. I hate you. I love you. Get away from me. Are you all right? I didn't mean to open up your wound again. Like, all in a day. All in a day. You know? See,
it's true.
That's why
I watched it happen over the course of less than 48 hours. Yeah.
Oh, up in
Wyoming. Yeah.
Just a brief little field trip into my world explains so much of to who I am and the way I act around you guys. And it's like I have to show dominance at my own job. So
weird.
You know, I'm just trying to say, like, they're just...
Yeah, sure.
I'm a ship in a storm, Maia. The same ship in the storm that was stolen from the Gardner Museum 30 years ago.
Did I tell you? Oh, I don't think I told them about the stupid little smut book I was reading. It wasn't actually a smut book. It was like actually
Which one, girl? Which one?
Like an actually published novel called Archer. It was called Archer.
Okay.
But it's like
I don't think I've heard about this yet either.
I texted you about it. I sent you like a screenshot of the book because I was like, it's the Gardner Heist paintings. Because there's like this whole thing. This girl is like the daughter of like a mafia enforcer, I think. And then he dies, leaving her with all these paintings that they had always kept with them. And then at some point, she's describing the painting, and I was like, that's the Gardner Heist Museum. Those are, and it turned like literally like 5 chapters later, it's revealed that that's actually true, and she's able to like use them in like a legal, I don't know, like trade off or something like that. But I was like, oh my God.
I love how much we know about weird subjects because of this podcast.
She literally described the ship in the storm, and I was like, oh my God.
Maybe be a little less judgmental next time.
No. Who do you think I am? Like,
so the thing is, this is what I love about our girl La Maupin so much. She has this boyfriend, probably pretty hot, right? He's a fencer, right? Like nurses him back to health. They become lovers. They decide, honestly, we're better off as friends. And when I say they, I mean at least Julie, maybe both of them, because Julie's like, hey, I've lived so much life already. I want to go back to school. I'm going to go get proper music training. And that's what she does. She finds a singing coach. Her instructor, his name is Marichel. He's a middle-aged musician, actor, who's impressed by her talents.
Okay.
He encourages her to apply to the Paris Opera, the greatest opera stage in France. Though he was a good teacher who gave Maupin valuable training, he had a fondness for the drink as well as for singing.
Nice.
And so when Marichel's drinking began to get the better of his abilities to teach, La Maupin took her leave to try to seek fame in the Paris Opera.
Wow.
She spends like maybe 6 months with Marichel. Like these huge things in her life are all just like little
blips,
6 months segments of time where she's just doing whatever.
We know lots of gays that lose interest after 6 months.
Boy, do we.
Now say it in a mirror.
I was like, you better not be looking at me. A much shorter attention span than that.
6 months is a long time.
That's
for Grant.
marriage in my community. That's like vicious Julia Roberts, Julianne Moore, Meryl Streep's gonna play you in the movie kind of divorce.
Yeah.
So we're so I've missed you a little bit too. Like just 3 weeks and I'm like, no one else gets my humor like you do. And all of them, of course. But I don't see them.
I don't see them.
And so she spends 6 months working with Marichel, and she's like, okay, sweet, I'm going to head up north. Like, thanks so much.
Yeah,
like,
okay,
take care of herself. Yeah. And so on her way back to Paris, she shoots off just a couple of letters.
Oh, no.
And La Maupin hooks up with her old lover. Do you want to guess which lover?
If it's the old guy, I'm going to lose it.
Yes. But here's the thing, because La Maupin, she's a little bit of a player. She's going back to Paris with technically a death warrant for her arrest by a fire, which never expires. And so she's like, if I'm going to...
Imagine putting that on your dating profile today.
I know.
I can't go to Paris because there's a death warrant out.
Oh, she sound like
by fire.
A quintessential chaos bisexual.
Shit.
And so she's like, Comte d'Amiac, like I've missed you. Aren't you 50? Like, congrats, boy.
Yeah.
Like, can't wait to see you in Paris. But hey, real quick, I actually can't get to Paris because like that whole crime against me kind of thing. If you could convince the king to pardon me for that.
Wait. Okay, so we're not sure about the truth of the convent story.
Right.
About like any of that convent story. So, but that's where she got the like death warrant.
Right.
So one way or another, there's a death warrant regardless of if it's associated with the convent story.
It's a death warrant or at least for sure a warrant for her arrest. It could just be the illegal dueling, which she seems to love. And follow your passion, girl. Yeah. Either way, she has to get a pardon if she's going to have a career as a singer, which is what she wants. And so she hits up her old lover, and her old lover's like, hell yeah, girl, I can do that for you. I'd be happy to talk to the king, my friend, the ruler of France, and get you excused. And she's like, Comte d'Amiac, amazing. Thank you so much.
What's that, like, the TikTok sound that's like, there's no more iconic duo than a gay and a redhead or something like that? Yes. I hope Comte d'Amiac is a redhead.
A redhead, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he does it. He arranges everything. She gets into Paris, and she immediately takes up a new lover.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, you thought I wanted to be with you?
You, gross. No, thank you. I'm here for your birthday. No, that's not.
No.
What do we think? Ooh. Yikes.
I know I'm hot now.
I have also fallen in love with a theater boy. This theater boy also just so happens to be employed by the Paris Opera. You know, the exact same place I'm trying to get a job at. So with love, I'm going to go for the job opportunity.
Unless you get some real strong connections in the opera world.
You understand.
You get it.
It's all business. It's strictly business,
I'm a woman.
Strictly business.
I'm a woman.
We'll still have those days where I was underage and you took advantage of me. But until
we'll
then...
always have those days.
Hey, we'll always have Paris.
Yeah.
She says in Paris.
Yeah. He's like, what the fuck?
So... With a new lease on life, new political connections, and a new lover. This one by the name of Gabriel Vincent Devenar.
Sure.
Yeah, that's as close as I'm going to get. And I'm looking at my own pronunciation guide.
Don't you hate
Devenar.
that?
She was hired by the Paris Opera and helped to get, and her new boyfriend, Gabriel, helps her become accepted into the company. La Maupin's Paris debut was in the role of Paias. Paias is another name for the Greek god Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare. And does she know a thing or two about fighting?
Sure does.
So at this point in her life, she is 17, like kind of towards the end of her 17th year of life when she enters Paris. She has a husband, Mr. Maupin. She's had a relationship with the Comte d'Armagnac. She ran away from Paris the first time with her lover, Saran. She maybe burnt down a nunnery for a girl in southern France.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Comte d'Aubert, she had a relationship with after she wounded him in that duel, and then she nursed him back to health. And now she's with Tavernar, who works for the Paris Opera.
And she's like 20 or something now?
She's 17.
She's 17.
And she's on her 6th lover. Don't
God,
you feel lame sometimes?
Yeah, what? Literally what?
You just know her body's like rocking because she's walking everywhere and like, they don't have Pringles.
Fencing.
Yeah. She's like, oh, you want me to hear me sing? Ha, 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 right?
You like have to have like decent core strength to be able to sing opera.
Right. And she's a great time because she has crazy daddy issues.
Yeah.
Right.
And some like sapphic love affairs.
And probably like no real mother guilt because it doesn't sound like mother was around at all, right? Just like, completely unbothered by what has been.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And
I'm jealous.
the year is now 1690. It's December 1690. And a revival of Lully's first opera, the Cadmus et Hermione, the main draw of this, I'm sure it's like Hermine or something like that.
I'm just
Hermione.
What is that quote?
It's the name of a play, not a person, so I didn't look up the pronunciation. I'm sorry.
If you take the queen, it can't be me or Hermione. It has to be you.
If I take the queen, Harry's free to check the king.
Yeah,
so what's he saying? He's going to sacrifice himself. No, Ron, you can't. And then I will get my hand up like a little sock puppet sometimes, and I'll look at my students and go, how dare you steal that car?
Yes. It's good.
Oh, whenever my students do something in the hemisphere. You have a good time.
Dare you?
So she appears alongside this kind of the first big French opera star, Marie Le Rochot.
Okay.
I'm sure I got that wrong. We're just going to call her Marie.
Sure.
That's the name I'm feeling good about. In the title role of Hermina. Marie had been performing roles for Lully and other top composers of the Paris Opera since basically our girl La Maupin was born. Quite the opposite of La Maupin, who's very new, right? Has only been playing in those second-tier opera houses down in the southern part of France. But for the Paris Opera, they now have two incredible talents. They have like the founding opera star, Marie, and then you have the infamous La Maupin, whose reputation alone is bringing people...
It doesn't even honestly matter how good of a singer she is.
Correct. Yeah. Fortunately, she's
a
great.
good singer,
but her reputation alone is bringing people in, and they're just putting on these shows.
Hell yeah.
This, as much as her singing ability and singing talent, caused a sensation at the debut. After finishing her part, not the play, after finishing just her part, La Maupin acknowledged the crowd's approval by taking off her helmet and bowing, which allowed for her long blonde hair to flow over her shoulders, and it sent the crowd into an absolute frenzy. And then she was like, like all slutty and cool and hot, and knows what she's working with.
Oh my gosh.
Debuting 3 years after Lully's death, she was to sing in revivals for the great composer for basically the rest of her career. Between 1690 and 1694, she appeared in many of the productions at the Paris Opera, becoming now famous for her stage name, La Maupin.
Okay. Meanwhile, the actual like La Maupin is down somewhere in the south of France being like,
tied up in a nunnery.
I'm not related to you.
Exactly. I have never seen that man. I'm just a tax collector.
Imagine someone comes to your door and is like, you owe taxes. And they're like, and what's your name? La Maupin? That's bullshit.
Are you related to the Maupins?
Yeah.
of the stabbing variety.
Of the opera.
But I've never really met him.
Yeah.
So I have the name first.
Yeah.
I never knew my wife. From Shark Tale. I never knew my father, but my wife.
That's good.
Should have done it. My wife.
My wife.
Again, the worst part about being gay, is I don't get to say my wife. And so I've just been saying that about you and Lydia now. Yeah.
That's fine. I want you to say that about your future husband.
Good. My wife.
That's so funny.
Anyway, so that's basically it for La Maupin. She settles down and dies in the end.
That's a fucking lie.
Of course it is. You
Whatever.
know,
I was like,
we're in
get
the
out of
heart
here.
of the story right now.
I see how much text is still on your screen. Boo.
What I'm trying to say is, like, what is this? What do you think this girl's about to do? She's 20, 21.
She has the world at her feet right now. She could do whatever.
Never really wanted for money because she seemed always capable of taking care of herself, like just a resourceful woman in that way. But she now also seems to kind of have a little bit of FU money that she can kind of throw around a little bit. And you know, she's successful. People love her. She's popular. They don't seem to mind her like crazy antics anymore, which of course doesn't encourage her to like slow down at all.
Yeah.
And so then we get to the next big incident that take her away. Here's what I have written.
Okay.
La Maupin becomes a star. French opera is new, and she's one of the first people to dominate that art form. She seems to have actually been really good at the whole singing thing, which of course helps, but she's also just a wild character. She wears pants. She's rumored bisexual, brassy, takes lovers, all of it, and fame does not temper her.
Nice.
And so one evening, she attends a ball held by King Louis the 14th's brother.
Okay.
French name, Philip. Don't tell the lioness of Brittany.
Yeah.
And she arrives dressed in men's clothing. Unusual for the time, but not necessarily unusual for her. Like, if this would happen in one of our fantasy novels, would you be like, this is a fictional person. This is a fictional,
if
like,
I saw
I'm reading
this
fantasy.
In real life,
that's your type.
I'm marrying her.
I understand. Yeah. I mean, I've seen the pants you put Casey in this Halloween. The leather ones. Yeah. Look at that little smile on your face right now.
Yeah.
I love you guys.
Yeah.
So unusual for the time, but not for her. She walks into this ball dressed like a man, pants and everything, walks to the middle of the dance floor, grabs a noble woman by the hand and face, and plants a huge kiss on her in the middle of the dance floor.
You know, one of the first moments I realized I was bi?
Go ahead.
This is like actually
let me turn off the phone real quick
me.
for a second.
I used to go swing dancing like every other Sunday, at least in high school. There's a place in Denver called the Mercury Cafe that'll do like lessons, and then they'll do Jitterbug on Sunday nights and then Lindy Hop on Thursdays. But on Sundays, I would go for Jitterbug, and it's just like an open dance floor, and it's really fun. They let like you can be under 18, you just like can't drink, obviously, and it's like a $10 cover. It's super fun. And anyway, you'll end up like kind of as a woman because you usually like need a partner to dance, which whatever, but you'll stand kind of on the edges of the dance floor and like wait for like one of your friends to ask you to dance or whatever, or you go and ask someone to dance or what. Anyway, I was like kind of doing like a Charleston-y dance like by myself but with some friends, and this like older woman comes up and just like hooks an arm around my waist and like pulls me in like across the dance floor and just starts leading, and I was like, what's your name?
Hi, I'm whatever your name is and whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. Whatever you want it to be, baby. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Here's the thing. That's a dream, baby. As a person who's kind of always been on the larger size of their age group, no one's ever taken me across the dance floor and spun me a couple of times. And that's okay. I've had plenty of fun on a dance floor. This is not a miserable story. But has anyone ever taken me by the small of my back and then whisked me elegantly as I'm wearing like a cocktail dress? No.
I can get Casey to do it like right now if you want.
I'd rather you. I think you're the better
that's
dancer,
fine.
But thank you.
I mean, I
am. Like it's a skill, not an attraction thing for me, I think.
Fair enough.
I'm just a lover of the craft.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
So back to this ball, hosted by the Prince of France, Prince Philip. She walks in the middle of the dance floor and plants this huge kiss on this noble woman.
So cute.
Sure, I want you to remember that during this time, it's like Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
Where like that
still
kind
taboo,
of
yeah.
Oh, right,
you're like not even supposed to like touch
taboo.
like with your hand.
Right.
Yeah.
And she plants a huge kiss on this person, and 3 different noblemen immediately take offense.
Oh, of course they did.
Because there's kissing on the dance floor.
Did the woman take offense? Because we didn't record that, did we?
Well, no, because the 3 men take offense because they wanted to kiss the noblewoman.
Get fucked.
They do.
Get fucked. Like, I don't...
All 3 of them are like, how dare you, sir, kiss a woman that I was courting. I was to dance with her next. I challenge you to a duel. And she was like, dope, bet.
Yeah. I love her so much.
Exactly. 3
I want to
men.
take a fencing lesson.
3 men rise to challenge her, all believing it's a him they're challenging. 3 men are vanquished by her. None of them die, probably. But all 3 lose
they
a
all
duel.
actually duel
yes,
her.
and I think in the process of dueling, realizing they have now challenged a woman to a duel.
I want to be on that emotional roller coaster where they're like mad and they think that's justified. They challenge them to a duel and then they realize it's a her. And then they're like, oh, I fucking got this. And then halfway through the duel, they're like, oh, shit.
The panic of losing to a woman during that era.
Yeah.
And now they're like forcing it. And it's, she plays against their weaknesses.
Yeah.
And,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Incredible.
Causes an absolute tizzy, though, because I think she kind of shows up late, kisses, fights, bounces. Because, say it with me, dueling is illegal.
I want that first thing on a tote bag. What is it? Like,
dueling is illegal?
No, the first that shows up to a dance, kisses, fights, bounces.
Late. Also, that's how you know she's a chaos bisexual. Shows up late to the party.
I don't remember if I sent it to you or not.
Not really properly dressed for the occasion.
I shared it on my story.
Why are you in that Fraser shirt again? And why are you an hour and a half late? Dinner started already.
So I identify as late. And then my pronouns are on my way.
What's so funny if it's a professional thing?
Almost / there.
I am 5 minutes early to all professional things. And socially, I'm like, I'll get there before the next day. I'll be there. Don't worry about it. But I'm still better than some of the other people in our group.
See, my social anxiety prevents me from being on time or early. I want to be early if I really know the host. I never want to be on time in any other situation. I want to be
even for
30
a meeting
to 40.
Or something?
No, for a party or something like that. I want to be 30 to 45 minutes late. I want to make an entrance.
That's why, as a good host, I have that pre-party of 4 or 5 people of my closest friends.
That way, when you come
before,
there's plenty of
already
options.
People there.
Yeah.
You're already like, oh, look at my acquaintance from work who showed up exactly at the start time of this party because it's an acquaintance at work. Thank goodness I have 4 other people in this living room who don't know anything about this person.
You are a good host.
Thank you. And so, moving on.
Nope. When I was in my first internship, the second or third week of the internship, they had a company-wide meeting essentially, and it was a small company, but they bring everyone to Rhode Island to have this conversation or to have this meeting. But then at night, we would all have these fancy dinners and drinks and happy hours and everything. And one of the women that organized the whole thing from the company, her name was Nicole. Super kind, super nice, but I think she didn't quite understand. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm
Just
okay.
put me in a corner with a dog.
I'm okay being alone. You don't, because she kept bringing people up to me and having conversations, and then being like once we were talking, she'd be like, "If you'll excuse me," and then she'd walk away, and I was like, "You son of a bitch."
I don't really do that.
Well, yeah, but then I would get out of the conversation, and then she would bring someone else up to me, and I'm like, "I'm gonna."
If you're at my party and you're on the couch, I understand that you're kind of standing up in the foyer, dining room, parlor, kitchen area. That's active conversation,
If I'm fine.
My parties can be kind of overwhelming sometimes. I get a lot of people in there.
I feel like me and Casey are
I do.
We'll sit in the corner and not talk to each other. At some point, at some parties, I'll look to Casey and be like, pretend we're in a conversation because someone's coming up to us and I don't want to talk to them.
And then if it's just Casey who needs to find something to do, anyone want more bread? I brought 4 loaves of different types of bread. Here's something I can do with my hands.
Does anyone want a drink?
Let me cut you some bread right now. There's more bread for you. It's such a good party trick.
He loves being
a great time.
He loves being the bar master.
I have something that we need to talk about during Patreon.
Okay, perfect.
Let's
Amazing.
pause for 10 seconds.
We're pausing.
Station identification.
Yeah.
And we're back. Okay. And we're also back to our story. So since King Louis XIV had outlawed dueling, she now had to flee the city again, pursued by the law again.
Yeah, classic.
So she's going to, where did I write this down? Yes. Okay. So she's going to run off to Brussels. For the record, some stories suggest that she kills these men, but that is not verified by most of the sources.
Yeah.
Although, again, they kind
We
of
don't
differ.
know. Yeah.
Depending on now who you believe throughout this story, La Maupin has now killed exactly no one or 5 men.
Yeah. 0
Which
to 5.
is such
Pick your poison.
a crazy reputation to have. Just a misunderstood woman or a woman with a bloodlust.
Yeah. Who knows?
Hooray for historical records. And again, rumor has it is the name of the theme. One more thing about this duel with the 3 men. The French Prince Philip, who was the one that was hosting the ball, is a verified chaos bisexual because he's a French prince. So a lot more stuff was written and recorded about him.
Right.
Both in France and elsewhere. And that's kind of the secret to like being remembered after your death. Have your name written down in multiple countries, texts and stuff like that. So that way it can be like kind of cross-checked. So like he was famous for showing up in frocks and dresses and wearing wigs if he wanted to. Taking male lovers, obviously, because he was the Prince of France. He also had like a wife.
Also, it's France.
Right. It's France. They're in the aristocracy, so they have the ability to
They're also like notorious for
way.
just kind of having
right.
pro-sexuality.
Well, because especially as the upper end of the aristocracy as well, the church can't touch them. So they can do whatever they want. They are the head of the church in a lot of ways. And so everyone is at this party, and the French Prince Philip just like has his little French twink boyfriends around, and he's like probably wearing a dress at this party because that's what he'd hold bowls for. And so there is at least some historical evidence to suggest that the 3 men really weren't offended that she was a woman. They were offended she kissed the girl
that they wanted to kiss. I love that, actually. I love that version way more.
I do too, to be completely honest. Did I say all that? Yes. Jealousy more than homophobia. And then I put, men will literally die in a fight for a woman before just asking, hey, do you want to make out?
Yeah. Or asking, hey, do you prefer men or women?
Yeah. Hey, open? Dope, great.
Cool.
Good news.
Yeah, cool, cool.
More competition, but I get it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyways, these rumors live on in both British and French publications for years. Many of these publications are called things like Anecdotes Dramatiques, right? And other anthologies written specifically about interesting people in the decades after their death. So it was basically like the 300-year-ago version of Wikipedia, where you would like just flip open a page and be a different kind of interesting person.
It's literally the older version of this podcast.
Right. And so many of those books is at least some of the oldest records we have of La Maupin. So it's like it's just Casey outside the window.
The shit out of me. I could see Casey through the window.
I've been just like he's doing yard work, so I can see him from my angle.
He's picking up poop. I could only see.
Not his own, the dog's.
Scared me. That scared me.
So these books are like where we get a lot of what we know about La Maupin.
Right.
And so that's why you have to kind of really kind of put on your historical glasses and filter a little bit, because these books are trying to make money. So they are trying to sell, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to write, right. Yeah. So you have to write stuff that people will find interesting. And as a certified storyteller myself, level 2 accreditation.
Who gave it to you?
Me.
Damn it.
Soon Arkansas State University online master's program in communication studies, but also me. I actually am a big fan of it. If you have questions, email the pod. I'm happy to talk about the grad program. It's been nice so far. Anyways.
Don't email me. I don't know.
It's just willylaugh.pod@gmail.com. So like these books are trying to make money. And so like obviously there's probably some hyperbole in the stories. But the question is like, is it hyperbole or did they fully fabricate this woman?
Okay.
Probably didn't fully fabricate her. That there are elements of these stories that are true, or these are true stories that were then assigned to her. So someone did the nun thing and now it's just La Maupin because it like fits into like her overall arc.
Yeah.
So much of that time that she spent in southern France is documented in Anecdotes Dramatiques and other things. These other elements are documented in aristocratic people's diaries and journals and like life events. And so we're kind of now in this crazy way in the more verified portion of her life, the older version of her life.
Good. How old is she? When we're going to start?
It's 1697. So she is 24.
Well, goddamn.
Also, I just put this note in here, and I feel like I can't not say it. So, anecdote Dominique, a bunch of places like document her. One of the last people to write about her in that style of setting of like interesting people you should know about was in 1910 Bram Stoker, author of Dracula.
Nice.
Okay, so
hell yeah,
we're back to France, and we're back to our story. The year is 1697, and La Maupin is escaping to Brussels. She has resumed her singing career, appearing at the local opera house. And she will perform there between late 1697 and mid 1698. So again, doing that classic just 6-month stint where La Maupin's life changes fundamentally to the core.
Jeez.
And she, of course, takes a lover.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do in your free time if you don't?
Real quick, actually, before that. So her wild behavior showed no sign of abating while performing a dramatic death in Johann Wolfgang Frank's Aeneid. La Maupin intentionally stabbed herself with a dagger, like broke her own skin. Obviously not very thick, but like broke her own skin, had a real actual scream, and then real actual blood poured from her body onto her outfit. And the Brussels audience was like, amazing. Get your hair out of the way.
Yeah. I want to see the blood.
So she's absolutely killing it. Like she's just basically on like her national road tour of opera. She's like getting her legal situation figured out in France.
Wow.
La Maupin intentionally stabs herself during a production. Also, while she's hanging out in Brussels, she becomes the mistress of Maximilian Emmanuel, the Elector of Bavaria, which means, right, so that means she becomes entangled with the heir of Bavaria. So I'm going to try to do this in 60 seconds. The Holy Roman Empire wrapped up in 60 seconds.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
This is going to be a TikTok I want you to know.
Good. Okay. Let's put that down so it doesn't like, yep.
Good words.
Thanks. Okay, this is going to be a 60-second episode on the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, so Holy Roman Empire based loosely around the Roman Catholic Church, right? Although that becomes less important as time goes on.
Right.
See, after the fall of the Roman Empire, there's a couple of major states that emerge. None of them emerge in Germany. Germany stays a series of small city-states, much like we were taught about Greece and Athens.
Right.
But times like 100. Like there's literally over like 150 city-states called principalities in the area that we now know as Germany, right? Some of them are larger, like the area around Bavaria ends up being quite big. The area around Berlin ends up being quite big. Some are really small and just their own cities. So famous places like Frankfurt and Hanover, all of them have their own little princes. And the prince, all of them, cast their vote for who will be the leader of the Holy Roman Empire. And that becomes your kind of like CEO of this confederacy. And so the idea is he can unify everybody and like bring them to work towards similar political goals and things like that. But they're all also fiercely independent and trying through marriage and war and alliances expand their empires. So it wasn't unusual for me to own my little principality around my city and then own actually a different town and don't own the land between those two towns. So when she hooks up with the Elector of Bavaria, she hooks up with the Prince of Bavaria, who's going to inherit Bavaria, one of the largest kingdoms in Germany. And then to wrap that all up.
Hell yeah, girl, get your tits out.
Absolutely get your tits out. And to wrap all of that up, do you know the person who will eventually unite all of those German principalities into one unified?
I'm sure you're going to tell me, and I'm sure I'm going to be like, I've heard that name once.
Bismarck, which is why there's so many places in America named Bismarck today because of German immigrants after the 1870s when it unified.
Wow.
I know. And also, that's how you know, this is me telling you guys, the nation of Germany has only existed since 1870. Yeah.
No, I don't like that.
Okay, back to the story.
Hey, you just messed me up.
About what?
Time.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Yes.
Since January 1st.
Was like 8 days ago or 4 or 2. We
are now closer to 2050 than we are to 2000.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
That's bullshit.
Because I was alive 7 years before the year 2000. Part of me is like, I am aware as to how long I've been on this earth.
2050 is not a real year. 2030 is not a real year.
I'll be retired by 2050. I'm kind of like, hell yeah, 2050, let's go.
Will you?
Get your tits out 2050. Yeah, that's in 25 years. I have already 10 years of teaching experience.
Well,
Maybe
yeah, I know
35-year career.
But how old will you be in 2050?
55.
You will not be retired by
And
then.
my goal is to retire at 57 under the pension plan.
You can retire at 57?
With,
Is that like a normal teacher thing?
after 35 years of service, yeah.
What?
It's a good gig. It's a really good gig. Now, the tough thing, and this is where they get you, you're not eligible for Medicare until like a couple years later.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a gap there.
So what you do is you retire from the public system, start drawing
private.
your pension, and then you go private. Yeah, exactly. Basically just for the health insurance and for the shits and gigs.
Sign up for the Patreon, please. I want to
retire at 57.
I don't even need to retire at 57. I just need to quit my job.
Imagine how cool we're going to look at that age, though. I mean, you'll obviously be, what, 48?
I'll be like 30 by that point.
Sure, you'll be looking 20, but you will be 30, and I'll be 55 looking like death, and we'll be in Greece.
Did I tell you? I went to that.
We're going to get back to the story, we promise. Sorry, we just missed each other.
I went to that photo shoot at Colorado Threads, and the like girl who was running it, she's very sweet, and I really like her. But I told her how old I was, and she was like, "Really? I thought you were older." And I was like,
"Oh, wow.
That's fucked up."
People don't say that to me anymore because they know I'm old, but they're like, I don't know. How old do you think you are?
Yeah.
That's a great question because sometimes I get that date wrong.
Yeah.
I'm 31 right now.
Yeah, you were telling us about that.
I'm gonna go back to.
You tell us their story.
Okay. If I can find it.
I don't really have coherent words right
now. That's okay. So during her time in Brussels, she hooks up with the Prince of Bavaria, which also, like, she's in Brussels, which is a city famously not in Bavaria.
Yeah.
So what's that Prince Maximilian Emmanuel doing there?
In Brussels?
I don't really know. But what I can tell you is after only 6 months, he was like, "Please leave me alone. I will give you 40,000 francs to leave me alone." And then she throws the money in his face and potentially kicks him down the stairs. And then makes her way back to Paris.
Hooker.
Exactly.
I'll leave on my own
I'll
accord.
stop bothering you when I'm good and ready.
Just stop bothering
No, go
you.
stand over there by those stairs.
And turn your back and don't look at me.
And here's the thing. I don't think she kicked him. I 100% think she threw the money in his face at least. Because there are lots of stories about her having a very quick and surprising temper, that she can get angry very quickly.
What? No.
I know.
Raised amongst men? That's crazy that would happen.
Without any parental guidance, basically, your entire life.
Yeah. It's wild.
So she leaves. She leaves Brussels after being there for 6 months and returns back to Paris again. This time, she needs another pardon, so she calls up her friend, Prince Philip, and she's like, "Hey, remember that time I dueled a bunch of people at your party after being a little gay? Can you get that expunged?"
Yeah,
like,
I would like to come back and maybe duel more people, but we don't need to talk about that right now.
Max was mean to me. Also, I killed it in Brussels. I'll tell you all about it. I stabbed myself.
Yeah.
But I want to be back in Paris. Can you get back in Paris? And he was like, "Well, all right, you get back in here." And for the second time in her life, she gets someone in the French aristocracy to give her a pardon.
I like Philip like pardoning her more though. That feels a little less gross.
Just two girls, two sisters being like, "Girl, I queen out all the time." I get it.
That's literally yeah. That's exactly what it feels like.
Through the intervention of his brother, yes. I actually also never really found out why he agreed to it. I think I never found out why Philip agreed to help her get a pardon, because I don't have a lot of stories about them being like buddies. I think he was a lover of opera and the arts and probably a lover of mischief to a certain extent.
That's the thing with royalty, though, is that sometimes they don't need a reason.
Right. Sometimes
and especially if you're like not, because he's not heir to the throne, right? Because he's second born or something.
Yeah. And now King Louis XIV has his son, King Louis XV.
Yeah, so he's good.
He's just here to like kind of mess around and have, as much debaucherous actions as he wants.
That's the perfect political ally.
I also think there's a decent chance that he gets it like expunged, or he gets La Maupin a pardon just to piss off the people she dueled. Like, I think there's
I love that.
Like I think it's...
I love that's canon in my head now. That is the most petty bullshit I have ever heard.
It's
one of them
world,
just pissed him off.
Yeah, it's like,
and he's like, "Get your ass back here."
It's like, who is this? The opera singer? Oh, who stabbed John? Yeah, let's get her. Let's get her. Write her back. Write that down.
Write that down.
And that feels just as true as anything else. Because I wasn't like, and then she called up King Philip, or Prince Philip, her longtime friend or whatever, right? Like, didn't see any of that kind of stuff. And also, like, while they all we understand them today as queer, I don't think necessarily shared like a queer identity.
Yeah,
so I don't think he was like looking out for the community.
No, it was
I legitimately think he was probably being pretty petty to somebody.
I love that.
But she's back, baby. She's so back. She was never gone.
I love that.
So she returns to Paris, now again without a criminal record.
That's incredible.
She resumes her opera career basically immediately. The old famous opera star Marie has retired, so she gets to step into the leading lady
gets to
role.
be principal?
Correct. La Maupin was able to take more leading roles because the old opera star Marie is retired.
Wow.
And so her opera career reaches unprecedented heights from 1698 to 1705.
She definitely has fuck you money, and that makes it so much funnier that the Prince of Bavaria or whatever was like, I will pay you this amount of money to get out of my face. And she's like, literally?
I'd take 40,000 francs right now.
I
That's
would too.
life-changing money.
Yeah.
He's like, please go away. And I also like to think it didn't start at 40,000. Like it got up to 40,000. And she goes, that's how much you think I'm worth.
Yeah,
Throws
literally,
face.
fuck you.
Like she has the independence and
Yeah.
like the self-assuredness and the connections to be like, I don't need anything.
Yeah.
But I actually really do like performing opera.
Yeah.
So I would like to, and I'm going to. And if you don't have me, I'll just go down to the street to a different opera house, maybe start my own, and we'll just see how many people come to my show.
Yeah.
Because I'm La
Better
Maupin.
than you.
And even if I'm not better than you, although I am better than you,
Yeah.
They said at one point her voice was too low to perform the traditional feminine roles that like the heroine, like
God, she's
like,
hot.
So instead they just cast her as every god and goddess in every single opera, which of course is the actual dramatic parts. Like the female written roles in a lot of these operas aren't deep, but the like god and goddesses are. And
The
that's
female
what her
roles in
vocal
opera
range.
all failed the Bechdel test, let me tell you.
And so, oh God, where is it at in the story? I want to find it. Yes. Okay. Oh, good. You're going to love this. So she goes back. She's starting to perform again. She's again doing Lully, who's like the founder of French opera. She's doing a bunch of his stuff. She's performing as the lead, right? She does a really good job as Ceres, the goddess of agriculture and fertility, in a 1699 staging of Proserpine, things like that. Yeah. Sure, you know, let's say yes for fun.
My opera knowledge is limited.
Yeah. At this point, she's like 26, 27, 28 years old.
That also
she's younger than I am right now.
means that her like voice vocally is like just now
growing and maturing.
fully matured.
Correct.
Yeah.
Her offstage dueling and romantic escapades ensured that her name was well known even among non-opera goers as the subject of gossip and popular songs. And then her old lover, Thévenard, who helped her originally get her job.
The like fencing guy, right? No. The guy who was like too drunk.
Nope, that was her. So the order of lovers went Comte Armagnac,
then
fencing guy. And then
she came
a girl,
back. Girl
down in southern
girl.
France.
Yeah.
And then before she came back, she had that guy, the Comte Albert, who she nursed back to health.
Right.
And then she had a music teacher she did not sleep with. At least if they did, it wasn't that good because they didn't write it down. And then they go back up to Paris. And she gets Comte Armagnac to pardon her for the first crime.
And then she already has a
with Thévenard,
lover.
And that's Thévenard. The guy
what was
working
his
at the,
connection?
Working
Just
at
that
the
he
Paris
worked at the opera? Okay.
And gets her in. Basically, she's like, I want to be in the Paris Opera. Look at that, man. Kith.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the Paris Opera.
Yeah. You gotta work, babe. Like you
better work.
Like she got it.
So
she got it.
She comes back. Now kind of gets into the Paris Opera on her own. And Thévenard's like, hey, how's it going? And she's like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Are you still living?
Yeah. Are you still alive?
And the subject of gossip and popular songs. Her old lover, Thévenard, who had helped her get hired originally at the Paris Opera in 1690, was still with the company. Reacquainted, the couple resumed their tempestuous relationship on and off stage. Like, you've heard of enemies to lovers. I actually believe these were lovers to enemies. And here's two examples. Mm-hmm. He tried to rekindle the relationship. I'm now telling like a kind of like speed run version of this story, picked up from the sources that I could find. I'm naming right now, as I have elsewhere, there's at least a 40% chance this story isn't true.
Okay.
But it's included as part of like her story, her knowledge, like her character is what I'm trying to say. And I kind of believe it from what I know about her.
Fair.
But here's the story. Thévenard tries to rekindle the relationship. She said no. He persisted. She said, "Duel me." And he goes, "No, I'm not going to fight you."
No, I've learned that lesson.
And so she beats him up with a cane and robs him. The next day he comes to work.
Julie!
So he comes to work, the place where they both work at. And they're like, "Tivanar, what happened to you?" And he goes, "I was mugged by 3 men on the street."
Shut up!
And she goes, "No, you weren't. It was me. Here's the proof." And then hands him back in front of everyone the stuff she had stolen from him. Anyways, here's your stuff back. Call me later. Like, so.
Oh my God!
So fold that in, because then here's the other story I want to tell about Maupin and Tivanar. Their relationship was so intense and back and forth and hot and cold that at least during one performance, while on stage, Maupin bit Tivanar's ear and drew blood. Didn't bite it off, but got in there a little bit. They would remain friends for the rest of their lives.
Well, yeah, she bit his ear.
They're both chaos bisexuals.
I love that.
So the real chaos bisexuals were the people we
met
bit
along the way.
It's also so funny, too.
That's good.
Because that story of Tivanar is for sure the second time she's in Paris for the opera, which means when she stabbed herself just a little bit in Brussels, she got a reaction that was so positive. She was like, these people want to see live blood.
They want blood.
They want blood. Turns out to be incredibly prophetic in about 100 years when there's a guillotine
in
the center of the city. But in the moment, she was like, gotcha. So violence is what you want.
Oh, that's amazing. Have I ever told you the story of my choir teacher on Broadway?
Maybe, I don't know.
I think I'm trying to remember which show it was. She used to perform on Broadway, and she also was like operatically trained, I think, in Europe, but then I don't know what her whole story is, but she was it was one of these three. It was either Cats, Kinky Boots, or Fiddler on the Roof. I don't know which one. But she was performing in that show, and while she's performing a live show, she falls into the orchestra pit onto a trombonist's lap.
No, I have never heard this.
Yeah. The next day she comes in and like they all have these like little mailboxes where they pick up their paychecks and whatever. And she had like a slip that was essentially like, "You're fired. Like you can't do that." Like that was a mistake. But that was her first husband.
Who the lap she fell into? Mm-hmm. Hold on. Okay, so she was just conducting and then fell into the pit?
No, she was performing.
Oh, and misjudged it so badly. She fell into the pit. But she landed on her husband.
Her first husband.
I love, one, I love those kind of stories.
Yeah.
Two, I love people who are happily married calling their partners their first husband or their first spouses.
Yeah.
It just feels like a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of mystery.
Well, now she's married to her second husband,
I know.
so okay.
But you know what I meant.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Yeah. Casey is my first husband.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jacob is Lydia's first husband.
I love that Jacob and I collectively call our partners our first
husbands and wives.
Yeah,
and
much
the other
to the dismay of the partner. Casey calls me his ex-girlfriend. So
you don't see Lydia get anxious too often. But when you do, it's because she just got called first wife.
Yeah. What the hell?
Saw this great quote and it was like, "You always want to be first love, second wife, third real estate agent."
Okay. Wait.
We're gonna get back to Maupin, we promise. Right? We just do miss each other.
Yeah. At the tournament, your kids started asking me what I do for a living, and so I was telling them, and then they turned to Lydia and they go, "And what do you do?" And I was like,
"What are you doing?"
Nice.
And Lydia's just crocheting in the corner across the chin.
I was like, she's an entrepreneur, and they're young.
There's many interesting things about her.
They're young because instead of going like, okay, they all went, ooh.
I know. Instead of being like, oh, nice. Whereas adults were like, that's a huge
okay, but
red
like,
flag.
What does that? Yeah.
So you have to privately purchase health insurance? That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Besides her continued appearances and revivals of Lully's operas, she also debuted many roles in operas by composers such as Campra, Destoche, and Colas. She appeared in over 24 different stage performances, including operas, opera ballets, and concerts.
Wow.
She originated 25 different roles for the opera, and existing roles were sometimes rewritten to better suit her lower vocal range.
Awesome.
Though a soprano, her lower range and assertive character made her unfit. Oh, I said that part.
Yeah.
Perhaps taking a cue from her habit of cross-dressing offstage, some later biographies would claim that she specialized in, quote, trouser roles or in playing male characters.
Okay.
But in fact, all the roles that she is known to have sung are female
feminine.
characters.
Okay.
Shout out
Fair.
specifically to the Los Angeles Public Library's page about her.
Yeah.
They did her one time as like a celebration of the arts or whatever. There was so much opera knowledge that I was actually really appreciative, because all the other articles that you read about her are like, here's these 8 wild and crazy things that this chaos bisexual did.
Yeah.
Stabbed a man, girl, nun burning, Prince of Bavaria,
Yeah.
second pardon, right?
Yeah.
Old boyfriend, blah, 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 right? They're all like highlights. But the Los Angeles Public Library was like, she was a dedicated performer of the arts. And I was like, good, I'm trying to fill out this woman in a way that's more than just like the stories that get spun about
just the
her.
highlights. Yeah.
Right. It's like she's more than who she is with a sword.
Yeah. She's who she is with the sword on stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so about 1701, La Maupin's husband, Monsieur Maupin, returns to Paris and returns to her life. It's
I
1701.
forgot she's married this whole time.
She is 28.
Like legally married.
Right.
Yeah.
She is 28 when her husband shows up. And
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
and she's like, returns to her life. Although, and perhaps you can kind of get this because he willingly lived away from his wife for like,
Forever. Yeah.
14 years.
Yeah.
It's literally 14
Yeah,
years.
that's crazy.
He doesn't really change her behavior all that much. He just kind of gets reassigned.
14 years because they married when she was 14
14.
and now she's 20. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
When the Comte d'Armagnac was like,
Yes.
I'm going to get you a husband so you have a position
reason to
in
stay here,
society,
and then I'm gonna send him
away. Right.
And now
so I
he's
think
back.
he just kind of gets reassigned back to
Yeah.
Paris, but like they don't move in together.
I love that.
I'm just telling
That's
you
beautiful.
in this part of the story
That's
that
so French.
her husband is back in the city. Sorry.
So French.
That's another Sex in the City moment too. Big's back. Big's moving to Paris. Okay, Carrie Bradshaw. Though this appears to not have hindered her extramarital relationships at all. Her bisexual affairs, cross-dressing, sword fighting, all continued unabated. Among her more prominent scandals of the time, she became smitten by a soprano named Franchon Morier, who didn't love her back, and it did not go well.
Oh,
She
no.
wasn't used to not getting her way and not being loved by the objects of her affection, and kind of like, I can't go on like this for like a couple of weeks, like just fully, completely shuts down.
I want to be her gay best friend in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just
And
like
her husband comes back and he goes, what kind of woman have you turned into?
Yeah.
Because you really could have used a parent and not like a husband that got shipped off. you could have used some parenting. Besides her opera performances, she was popular for her parties and chamber events. The nobility loved to have her around, including the king at the Palace of Versailles. She is known
Nice.
to have sung a chamber music concert accompanied by the harpsichord organist and composer Francois Couperin, Couperin.
COU. Okay, yeah.
And then, in 1703, she began an affair with the famous and wealthy Madame la Marquise de Floissanque, Marquis de Floissanque, considered the most gorgeous woman in France. She hooks up with him. Although she was also scandalously promiscuous, the Marquis does not appear
Or
to
is it a
have-
Marquess?
It's a woman.
Marquise. I don't know. Don't listen to me. I don't know why you're listening to me.
The Marquess. I'm going to go with Marquess. I'm sorry
Sure.
if it's wrong.
Yeah.
We're just committing to continue the story.
Yeah.
Despite having been famously promiscuous herself, it looks like La Maupin is the Marquess's first lesbian relationship.
Wow.
And they, like two good lesbians, immediately move in together.
Of course they do.
They are immediately in each other's
course.
apartments. And this is why I said earlier in this episode that we have lots of examples where they have like fully documented La Maupin's like lesbian love
Yes.
life. This is one of those moments.
Yeah.
I'm going to read a letter to you,
Okay.
written and preserved in someone else's writings.
Okay.
And that's why we have access to it. Quote, for 2 years, they lived on this tenderness they thought ideal, ethereal, and beyond the reach of the stain of men. The young woman, I know, right?
That's beautiful.
So accurate. The young women isolated themselves, enamored only appearing in public at occasions where their presence was essential. Indeed, one finds, after 1702, no songs or satire against the two women were written. So she like settles down with this like powerful, gorgeous woman. They're both powerful and gorgeous in their own ways.
Okay.
And they're like, everyone's like, okay,
Sure.
you're happy. Okay, we'll leave you alone. And that was written
Fair
by
enough.
Louis de Rouvroy, La Duc de Saint-Simon, in his memoirs, a man who is infamous for hating La Maupin. Like, hated her so much.
Imagine hating someone so much you write a book.
Right.
That's Harry Houdini and
Sir
Arthur
Conan
Conan
Doyle. Hated her so much, but in his own memoirs was like, but this relationship was really tender.
This one was cute.
Because Maupin did have haters because of her success, because of her beauty, because of her personality, her lovers. Plenty of people did not like her. They include the gossip columnist, Madame Marguerite something or another. I lost her last name in my research because she is truly not that important, but she wrote plenty of letters about La Maupin to people.
Okay.
And that is actually where a lot of the source material for the anecdotes and biographies.
Like, was she a journalist or just writing letters
I
to
get
people?
a little bit like Miss Whistledown vibes from her, like in the aristocracy, writing about this kind of stuff.
Okay, kind of
but also,
anonymously.
No. Just kind of writing about it. No, just kind of like a regular gossip columnist.
Okay.
I think she probably did publish a couple things. Wrote about court goings-ons, right? Both in her own personal journal and diary and in letters to other people across the country.
But it wasn't like she had a Lady Whistledown
Not
situation.
that I was able to gather, but like I said, I even lost her own last name in my research. But what I'm trying to say is that like this gossip about La Maupin
was recorded.
And that's where I think a lot of people drew material from for like anecdotes dramatiques and things like that would write about her 2 or 3 decades after her death. They'd have like paper stuff that they could reference.
Yeah, fair.
But didn't have like her own journals and stuff like that.
Right.
And then in May 1705, La Maupin debuted what was to be her last great role as Isabelle La Vientiane by the famous flautist Michel de la Barre. Known more as an instrumentalist than a composer, La Barre wrote a series of 18 books of solo flute music.
Wow.
The first such music published for flutes.
Wow.
So, I know. So, like, again, shout out Los Angeles Public Library.
Yeah, for
who was like, she was
recording
there
that,
for music and stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason why in 1705 La Maupin debuts her final one is because it's during that run that her lover, the Marquess, catches a fever, becomes seriously ill, and dies 2 days later in July 2nd of 1705. And what's really interesting to me is that La Maupin is devastated from this loss. Mm-hmm. And I'm not necessarily shocked that someone would be sad when their lover died. I'm just shocked that a person who at this point in their life is like
so many
32 and has had 8 lovers in like 16 years, right? Has like averaged
and most
a new
of them
lover
were
every
like
2 years.
in like the span of like 3 years.
Correct.
Or something like that. Yeah.
And also like a lot of them, she clearly felt really intense feelings for. Like if you believe the story in Southern France.
Yeah, she was willing to die essentially.
Dig up bodies and set things on fire. She also like, it wasn't like the Marquess was like the most important person she hooked up with, right? Like Prince of Bavaria, for example, like pretty high up there. Comte d'Armagnac, like pretty
very
big.
high up
Comte
there,
d'Albert, right? Like there are plenty of powerful men in her life that she had, you know, tossles with and things like that. But the loss of her Marquess, after only being together for 2 years.
Just the fact that someone died while she was with them is probably
also really traumatic. Agreed.
Rough.
But it fundamentally changes the rest of La Maupin's life.
Oh.
As soon as the run for La Berre's opera is done, she retires from opera. According to some accounts, she would then live quietly with her husband for the remainder of her life.
Her husband is like, who are you?
Exactly. Other accounts have her spending the rest of her life in penance in a monastery. Her lover died in 1705, and she died in 1707 at the age of 34.
Oh my gosh.
Here's the thing. I don't know if I believe either of those endings about how the rest of her life ends.
But do you believe that she died around that time?
I don't know.
Okay.
We're kind of now in like the like
Rumor has it.
postscript, but it's a longer postscript than usual because it's unpacking this person. So here's the first thing. I do not believe that is how her story ends. I could see her dying in a duel or catching the same fever that her Marquess did. Like, those wouldn't necessarily shock me at all. Do I believe she died young? Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, let me say this again. From a historical records perspective, it's unfortunate she did not have any children because there's no one there to record her death after her death.
Right.
Right.
So suddenly she just kind of vanishes.
Exactly.
Right.
Without any other family, like parents or siblings or anything, there isn't like a great recording of her death.
That's why you and I need to get really close with our nieces and nephews.
I know. Oh,
otherwise we could die with history.
We got to get this published in every country, so there's a record of us. But no, here's why I don't think that this is what actually happened to her. And this is now 100% hyperbole. The false meter is up to like 90%, right? There's just a kernel of truth. But here's what my thoughts were. One, she has at no point expressed any interest or love for her husband, Monsieur Maupin, right?
Yeah.
She spent like 2-3 years in southern France, regularly having to work for her supper, never once tracked him down. Like, there doesn't seem to have been any real affection between the two of them. I think they both understood the agreement. I think they both probably got what they wanted out of the agreement. I don't know. Maybe there's a kernel of truth or a world out there where Mr. Maupin was out being gay himself, right?
Yeah,
and it was a marriage of convenience.
Yeah.
I mean, he was married to a gorgeous woman and then did not protest when they sent him away.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really hard for me to imagine that this woman who clearly loved the company of eccentric and exciting people
just like settled.
Right. Would choose to spend the rest of her life with a person who doesn't seem to have excited her.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Second, she actively is not religious. Like, this is a time where actively not being religious is a choice for people.
Yes.
Especially in France as the role of the church changes. She is not known for like prayer. She's not known necessarily. I mean, she plays a bunch of goddess roles, but that's kind of blasphemous to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
She has no connection to the church whatsoever. So the idea of her entering a convent again, that shocks me. Also, it shocks me because she has set one of those on fire.
Theoretically,
Right, theoretically.
Yeah.
And so what I actually would argue a little bit is what we get out of Maupin's life is the same kind of crafting we get in the story about setting the nunnery on fire from her teens, where like the ending is written in a way that regardless of how it ends, there's this lesson to be learned, right? Where it's like, so the first scenario where she then settles down with her husband and dies 2 years later, because he's that boring. It was like, see, after everything she did and everyone she had been with and all of her sins,
she went back to her husband.
understood at the end of her life that her role was to be by her husband's side.
Yeah, that's gross.
Right, gross. And also feels like someone writing a book of anecdotes in the 1750s would want to pass on as like an important life value lesson.
Right.
Right? You can't have a story about a person this like eccentric and not drag their story down to where it's like a life lesson for the young people reading the
propaganda.
books. Right.
Yeah.
Which then also explains the like convent approach to all of it, right? Where it's like she was so wild and eccentric, and then at the end of the life, she regretted it.
She had to settle down.
She had to ask repentance. A woman who doesn't seem once in her entire life to have regretted what she did. No documentation of her apologizing for either of the two pardons she got. Suddenly is filled with guilt at the end of her life. And maybe she is. There's obviously, like I said, this is a 90% falsehood.
Yeah.
You lose someone that's super close to you, it rocks your shit, and now you find God, right? Like, that's a thing that happens all the time. And that's very much a reality that could happen as well. But what I'm saying is, from what we have gathered from her, from the parts of her story that we have been able to understand, this doesn't make sense. And I feel like the people who recorded her were trying to look for an interesting person. We're creating as interesting of a person as possible. And so if there was ever conflict between her actions and her religion, or if there was other conflict between like her lovers and her husband, like I feel like that would have been recorded. Like that would have been another really interesting layer to all of this.
Yeah.
And it's just not in any of the accounts at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so the idea that she wanted to go back with her husband or felt any kind of guilt for how she had lived her life just feels like this total...
feels wrong. Yeah.
Right. Again, the historical records are what they are. the historical records also can't even agree as to what happened to her, which I think also allows me to feel okay about speculating, right? Like, what do you mean she either lived with her husband or joined a convent? Like, those are two very different things.
And also two things that both don't make sense.
Right.
In the context of her life.
Like, I think there's legitimately a good chance she got, like, hit by a wagon or, like, drank herself to death or, like, died in a fencing accident. But, like, whatever her story wasn't a convenient moral lesson for the people who chose to record her afterwards.
I think she went off to become a pirate.
I think there's a decent chance that could be
that's canon for me now.
That she did, right? Yeah. It doesn't sound like she lost her voice, but there are no records of her performing in the Paris Opera or anywhere else afterwards.
I mean, yeah.
In the 3 centuries since her death, La Maupin's life has been depicted numerous times in print and on the stage and in film. Historical portrayals, some based on careful research, some wildly fictional, have alternatively celebrated and condemned her short but extraordinary life. In 1835, someone wrote a famous romantic novel whose name character was named La Maupin.
Oh.
And here's what's very fun about this book, Mademoiselle La Maupin, or I think it's Madame Maupin is the name of the book. The whole play goes back and forth where Madame Maupin, seduces a man and then also dresses in men's clothes and seduces the man's wife. It's like a comedy. The main character is kind of like a complicated anti-hero kind of things like that.
That's incredible. Morally gray. I love that.
Morally gray 5, sure, but like basically pulls a Dr. Frankfurter and from Rocky Horror Picture Show and sleeps with both of them.
I love that.
And that was written like 100 years after her death.
I love that.
Based off of that kind of stuff.
That's incredible. Yeah.
If you are interested in pursuing some of this, and then I have kind of another wrap up too. There's probably at least another like 10 minutes. More recent depictions include a 1966 Italian film, a 2004 French TV miniseries, and a 2014 book, Goddess, a novelization of La Maupin's life by Kelly Gardner. And that's a name that came up repeatedly in my research as like kind of a more recent expert on La Maupin.
Cool.
Retellings of her life often focus on the more sensational aspects of her life, at the expense of noting the achievements of her operatic career in the early days of the Paris Opera. As La Maupin herself once wrote, quote, "I am made for perils as well as for tenderness."
Aw.
I know. So it leads to this big question. Why does this story survive when so much of it is kind of difficult to verify?
Yeah. And she's not like directly related to any like big political figures.
And it's not like French opera has a huge cultural impact in America today or anything.
Like mainly Italian opera.
Right. I think it's clear why her story survives.
Yeah.
It's because it has a series of incredible escapes, twists and turns, various lovers of various gender. She feels like a thoroughly modern woman who lived 300 years ago.
Yeah.
And there is a chance that most of the exciting things we know of her just aren't true.
Yeah.
Which means we may have invented La Maupin. Think about it. Take away the nunnery set on fire and the dueling of 3 men after kissing a woman, and does her story live on? She seems interesting, but probably not remarkable enough to have survived history for so long.
Or for someone to have dug up every record of her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not even really a lot of records about her from her own time.
Yeah.
About like what's been going on
afterwards.
Instead, this woman, who was connected to the aristocracy, but notably not royal herself, may have provided a perfect scapegoats for writers and moral finger waggers. This is now my own writing. Moral finger waggers, who did not want to offend any great house, but were looking to condemn the actions and behaviors and morals of the country's leaders at the time.
Okay.
That like, we will instead attack La Maupin, who's of your world but not protected by your world. And La Maupin might then become the like load bearer for all of our criticisms against you.
Against like French society and stuff.
Correct. And the way you're acting. A chance to admonish sexual liberation with a character whose unpredictable life of transit was far removed from both the reality of the common people or even what the common people dreamed of for themselves. Because all that movement is unusual for kind of anybody at that time.
Yeah.
Unless you're a trader or a merchant.
It's hard to travel.
Most people are farmers and they're living within 10 miles of where they were born. If you're a church, you're getting assigned, if you're a priest, you're getting assigned to a church for a while. Increasingly, King Louis XIV has all of his nobles and royal households moved to Versailles. So even like royal families spent large portions of their life at Versailles.
Yeah.
She moved all over, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps fictionally so, right? Like she becomes kind of this like tale of Don Quixote kind of version of like anything you kind of want to say about her is true. You can, oh, that sounds like something La Maupin might do. However, on the other side of things, like there is stuff written about her. She was an opera star. She did do these things. She originated several of these roles, and there is written documentation of her sapphic affairs later in life, and everyone clocks the Prince of Bavaria yelling at her. And so, like, she probably was real.
Yeah, at least in some sense, but we don't know, like, to what extent.
Right. She was real, don't know to what extent. I like to think that more of them probably break true than not true, but I say this all to you now, noting that not everything that I told you is true right now. And I did my best to verify it.
Yeah.
Final 2 paragraphs. Here we go. Because if she was real, how awesome. And maybe even better.
Yeah.
If she was real, but didn't do all these awesome things, but then they prescribed them to her as a kind of punishment for the way she was living, how awesome. We get a chance to celebrate her now. Who do you have to piss off? Why on earth? I was awake this morning when I wrote this sentence. I'm like looking at the words and it says like to do, and I'm like, what? Oh, yeah. I was trying to say how, which would change this whole thing. How many men do you have to piss off before they make you into a sword-wielding, man-killing, womanizing life lesson for generations to come? Queer people in history rarely get to control our stories and how we're remembered. Yeah. The same is true for women, which makes it doubly true for queer women. In honor of that spirit, we get to celebrate the life of La Maupin, a.k.a. Julie de Bodney, a stand-in for all women and queer people who had to trust their own devices and bloomed into fascinating people worth knowing and remembering because they were allowed to bloom. A better, truer legacy.
That's cool. I mean, regardless of who she was, like, that's a cool story.
Yes. I also think, like, you and I have joked before we love history for gossip, and I was like, this is the most gossipy history one I've ever done. Complete total chaos bisexual, 8 different lovers, most of them control of, like, peasants of some kind. Famous for her sword fighting and singing.
Yeah.
Her beauty, her talent, and she did so much of it without the guidance of parents, without the guidance of, plenty of people tried to take advantage of her throughout her life, and she stabbed a lot of them, so including herself.
Like this story and the last story that you did, both are like testaments to we don't really know who women will become if we don't put all these societal norms on them.
Right.
We have no idea.
There's this great book that I want to get into. I saw it advertised in December. It's called Who Cooked Adam Smith's Dinner? So Adam Smith is this British, kind of the founder of economic theory, kind of viewed as like the father of capitalism for like what he suggested and like the way his economic theories continue, right? Okay. This book asks who cooked Adam Smith's dinner, because it like raises this like huge question of like the way women have both been like limited, but then quiet contributors to all of these like forces going back and forth. And what you're seeing today in a lot of more modern, like neo-economic policy is that economies can't thrive until women thrive.
Yeah, man.
That's what I had to say about that.
Okay, yeah. I just saw a really cool TikToker, like content creator. I think they actually probably do a lot more work than just what I've seen. They just like posted kind of a rant, I think, that went viral. But from the comments, it seems like they do a lot of like interviews and stuff like that about their research. And she was talking about, she is one of the like co-founders and like AKA CEOs of a company with 2 of her male friends. Oh, cool. And since doing that, she's done a lot of research into like the disparity between men and women as like leaders of organizations and where that venture capitalist funding comes from, and like the amount of venture capitalist funding that does not go to women, despite the number of women-owned companies, is disproportionate, and also does not align with the success rates of women-owned and women-operated companies. And it just goes to show, like the two co-founders she's talking about in this TikTok, she's like, these two, by even adding me as a co-founder, decrease their chance of getting funded by like, I think it was like 84 point something percent or something like that. And it's just like, we don't trust women, like societally. Even a woman venture capitalist is more likely to invest in a man than a woman, regardless of the statistics. And so it's just, I don't know.
It's like, I think I saw somewhere, this could be incorrect now, but I thought a majority of patent holders in America are women.
Yeah.
Because women invent things to solve problems because no one else is going to solve it for
Especially
them.
like women are historically the ones in the house. Women are the ones historically finding those kinds of problems that aren't like industrial.
That simplify life is because at one point or another, we just expected women to do it for free. And they found a way to like mechanize it of some kind.
And even half the time, those inventions then don't get credited to them.
Exactly. Or like the one company was talking about how they give out microloans specifically to women. So a microloan is like, it's enough to start like a small business in developing economies. Yeah. So it's enough to invest into initial product or like livestock or like the bike that you need to transport all that stuff. Right. And they say, societies, communities become better educated and safer when women have the ability to also contribute to the economy, because then they have the chance to determine their own path. And communities are most successful when individuals have the most economic freedom, which I know makes me sound like a deep red capitalist. But like when the alternative is a man controlling your paycheck, then it's progressive.
Yeah, those two things aren't mutually exclusive in a lot of ways. Yeah.
So that's our little chaos bisexual. I'm glad to get a chance to tell you about her. I will say this, because the hope had been to record this episode before Christmas. And something that I was struggling with this episode was how much of it, like, no individual source was verifying anything for me. And so I would like read something and they'd be like, we don't know, but we kind of think. And so here's this. And then you read like a different source and there'd be stuff that was lining up, but like not lining up. And so I felt like I had gathered the core of the story that I wanted.
But you couldn't piece it together.
No, because I was like, I don't really know, like, what can I like really lean into and be like, we know she goes to Brussels, and what do I need to like pull back from and be like, she might not have been anywhere near a nunnery. Right. Yeah. And so that was, I think, ultimately what I really enjoyed about putting this story together, was just to read so much gossip and be like, I heard about this. Yeah, okay.
I'm so glad that teaser for my episode next week is it also has a lot to do with gossip.
Amazing.
And it's so frustrating because I have found a lot of primary sources, which is great. They're hard as fuck to read. Right. I had to ask ChatGPT at some point.
Whoa.
I had to put a number of sentences into ChatGPT, and I was like, please make this into modern speak, because I don't understand these words in this order. And the way ChatGPT like,
are you doing Beowulf?
No, the like how like there's the King James version of the Bible, and then there's like the teen version of the Bible.
Correct.
That's like, and then Jesus said,
You're like, give me Kids Bop version of this song.
That's literally what ChatGPT did to like several of these. Like, they weren't even written at the time of the person I'm covering. They were written in like the 1920s, but I was like, Anyway, there is a place that has access to all of the original sources, and they have an article on the person I'm covering, and they gave like a lot of teasers, and they're like, if you want more, like, look at this place. And so I looked, and they're like, you have to get access to all of these resources, but you can apply for access, and a lot of it is like educational. So I applied for access, and then they were like, we only give this to schools. Like, no. And I was like,
do you need my email?
No. Well, I think the like school that you're in has to have access.
Like a curriculum person or something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so they were like, if you want, you can reach out to one of your local colleges and see if they'll do it for you. And I was like,
what?
Get fucked. Like,
Maia tries to do investigative journalism once, and they're like, don't email us again, woman.
Maia just tries to...
18 hours before I record, I have a couple email questions for you.
My investigative journalism was like, please give me the sources I need to make this make sense. And they were like, no. I was like, what the fuck?
A couple of days ago, I was reading the article from Los Angeles Public Library on it, and I was like, this guy is so good. Maybe I should email him. And I tried to find his email, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, you could. I mean, it's probably accessible on like a public website, but I'm kind of towards the end. And also, I I'm not lacking for information.
It's also the holidays.
Right.
Like there's
not lacking for information. It's the holidays. I'm not also lacking for perspective. Like I've read so many different articles and listened to 3 different podcasts about this. Like I don't think this is actually going to give me insider knowledge. I don't think he's interviewed Julie, you know? So I'm going to go ahead and call it. But sorry that you got rejected.
No, it's fine. I like was kind of expecting to get rejected after like reading their like website. It's clearly like an academic source, but I was like, these are newspapers from the 1700s, and you're not going to send me a couple? Like,
I mean,
fuck?
If you want, you can check to see if Arkansas State University has access. I might
That's
be
actually
able to
not a bad idea.
No, I know. I've used it for speech twice to pull some academic
I have a
journals.
lot of sources.
Okay.
I'll do more research and see if I need it.
I love this like 8-minute long conversation about the episode they're about to hear next.
They're about to hear next. And to just like drive you into a tizzy, we've mentioned both of my next 2 stories in this story.
In this story?
We've mentioned at least very specific references to my next 2 stories.
What?
Yeah.
How? Well, one, we got to get out of France in the 1700s. We've been there a lot
We're
recently.
not in France in either of them.
How? Okay. Oh, so we're in Brussels and
No,
hell?
it's shit. I'm just gonna let you ruminate on that.
I'm excited about it. So your next 2. So both Rumor Has It and Two Best Friends. Okay, fun. Yeah. I now get a chance to fully dive into Two Best Friends, which is great because I have not picked my topic yet. But we're getting there, and I'm excited about it. And I'm pretty sure I know what my topic is for the next time I have to pick a theme, and I will start to themify the words. Trying to get as much work in the next couple weeks. This will be the last thing I say too before we do the little speech and do Patreon. The next 2 months for me are going to be really intense, just with work. Nothing personal, nothing bad, just a lot of plates
He's
spinning.
at a new school and running a more intense gig.
Correct. At a higher level, yes.
Yeah.
So if my stories the next 2 months end up being a little bit shorter or a little less intense.
You're not going to cover Dyatlov Pass?
No.
What's the point? Like,
if I get something like that, it's going to be a 3-part episode. It's like the next 3 themes need to be me able to do this.
That's fair.
But I'll be back, and I am good, and I appreciate your guys' understanding and support, and we hope to continue to produce like a really entertaining product. But mine just might be a little bit shorter and a little bit more fun and silly. Like, hey, let's talk about chaos bisexuals.
I love a good chaos.
And then we'll really get into it again.
Yeah.
Anything to say before the speech?
Yeah, I'm putting this at the end because I feel like most people leave by now. My favorite thing about interacting with your students is the number of them that are openly chaos bisexuals.
That's interesting. I certainly have no comments or thoughts
No,
on that at all
you shouldn't.
whatsoever.
But it was wild, like hearing them talk like with each other about.
A lot of them are out. We're not like speculating.
No.
A lot of them are out and
like
proud
literally
chaos
told
bisexuals.
me it was like me telling them I dated a senior as a freshman. It was like no one asked, but thank you for telling me that. But it was like
they'd be sharing a story and they'd be like generic names. They'd be like, "Oh, is this Amy or John that you're talking about?" And it's like, "Oh, okay.
Okay, so you're bisexual." But the way that they so openly talk about like their sexuality is so wild to me still, because like I went back to Mines like a year ago now, and like even seeing the freshmen and sophomores at Mines, I'm like, well, everyone is so much more open about expressing themselves, about expressing their identities and their sexuality, and it's even crazier to see that at the high school level, because when I was in high school and middle school, if you had like a not I don't know, like standard or like normal as it is, like normal, like in quotations, sexuality or identity, that became your entire personality.
Yeah.
Like you dressed that way, you like adhered to a certain set of like your like little social circles rules, and like you didn't necessarily associate as much with the like regular like straight identifying kids. And so it's wild to see the like change in society from even when I was in college.
I started working in schools my sophomore year of college, just like as part of the program. So it's been 12 and a half years of watching that change.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like,
cool,
you're bisexual and you're just like
wild.
Cool talking about it.
And like it's not a taboo topic for anyone.
Yeah.
Like
no, it's not.
We have a handful of like wonderful, supportive, kind of quirky, but we love them, straight boys on the program, and they'll be like, you need to break up with your boyfriend, and then the kid will be like, they've changed their pronouns. You go, you need to break up with your partner.
Yes.
They're not like flinch for a second. They're like, they're not treating you right. Get out of there.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
just
love
like,
that.
this is it's a fun time.
It's a cool thing to see. But yeah.
And also, it's like shockingly relevant to today's story.
Exactly.
Well, if you've enjoyed this and you've stayed to the end, thanks. We appreciate that. You can find more of us on social media, where we are Well I Laughed podcast across all platforms. If you have stories you would like to write in about Rumor Has It or Two Best Friends,
or whatever Grant's next theme is, that'll be announced on the Instagram,
or whatever story you really just kind of want to share, to be completely honest, please go ahead and drop that in at wellilaughdpod@gmail.com. You can find additional content on Patreon for $5 a month. You get 4 additional episodes where we really take away any last filters we have. And finally, if there's a special person in your life who you're impossible to shop for, you can find us on Cameo, and we will send you a little video.
We also have merch available. I don't know if anyone cares about that. We did get an email from someone that was like, my partner got me some merch from your website, which shows me that they do listen. And I was like, oh.
Either to us or to them, but yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, friends, until then.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Love you.